links because it's not quite the same with just me. So let's get these guys out. All right. So this weekend is, of course, the Cannabis Hemp Conference here in Vancouver. Rocking and rolling. I got to see Dr. Ethan Russo speak yesterday. I got to see Dr. Bob Malamud speak yesterday. And if those guys aren't just the most inspirational cannabis speakers, Ethan was perfect to go before Dr. Bob. I thought that the timing was impeccable. Ethan's very scientific. He's very proper. He's very articulate. Bob's a real wild psychedelic guy. So it was nice to see them both speak. And oh, I didn't put the subject on there. Welcome, Skunkman Sam.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy, ho. How's everyone doing this fine Sunday afternoon? Oh, doesn't want to let me send my email. Interesting.
Oh.
Interesting. Got to send.
So far, so good. Morning, Todd.
Come on, guys.
Doing, Todd?
Sam.
I can't send an email. Oh, well, I guess Indra's not coming in. That's the thing. When you make it so I have to send you the link a different way than everyone else, which is I think I'm going to have to send it to him a different way today. Let's try this out again. And Sub, I don't know. Sub's going to have to miss out as well because I don't have... that is so strange that suddenly my emails aren't sending. It's saying, it says account already exists.
Wow, that's weird.
That is weird. Sorry, Sub, if you're out there. I did try to get you a link. How's everyone else doing this fine Sunday morning?
Just waking up.
I hear that. I've been up for 2 hours just waking up.
That would be about just as long enough for this, for sure.
Right? I don't like to just wake up and 5 minutes later do hash church with like sleep on my face and the sheets creased into my face.
Fuck that. I wake up 15 minutes before I get my beauty sleep. I need it.
Awesome. But you look great. I can't even tell that you were sleeping 15 minutes ago.
Well, I get up, I comb my hair, you know. It helps.
Right. Yeah. It's true. If your hair was messy, it would look so much. Oh, wait a minute. You don't have any fucking hair.
I do. I just remove it regularly.
No, you do. It's just under your chin.
I have this cold underneath the chin area that it just stays cold all the time. So I need this. Otherwise, I'd freeze to death.
I like it. It suits you. It's the it's the Abe Lincoln. It's proper.
And would you wear that if everybody had one?
No, I do it because it's unique because I stop it right here. Back in the day, I used to have these matching, large circles on my face to match with it. Back when you met me,
and I used to have to go places with them like that. I was like, oh my god, oh my god. I'm with fancy is what my shirt used to say.
That's hilarious. One day we should all grow our beards like Etienne, just show up on Hash Church and be like, "Hey, what's up?"
The Amish edition.
That'd be awesome.
The Amish edition. You know it, Jedediah.
Eh?
So I was just mentioning before you guys all popped into chat, I was at the Cannabis Hemp Conference, Cannabis Hemp Conference, Salome's conference, not Cannabis Life. Those are the people that tried to hijack her conference. We'll get into that another day. But yeah, her conference was this weekend. It's today and yesterday. Got to see Chris Bennett. It was kind of fun being on the university campus. Walked out front of the bird's nest with the mothership and started hitting dabs in this beautiful learning environment that the university is. The campus, really beautiful campus at university. And the building that Salome has rented is impeccable, to say the least. But it was really, really nice to see Dr. Ethan Russo speak yesterday. Fantastic talk that he did. He got a little bit into terpenes. He got a little bit into the different breakdowns of cannabinoids, including THCV and CBDV, breaking it down with some some of the things that different science experiments and works have found to be true. And it was great. I taped it, recorded it, going to put it on Bubble Man's World. He was followed by Dr. Bob Malamud, who I can't believe had only 30 minutes to talk, but wow, can this guy pack in a serious amount of intellectual information in a very short period of time. It was neat to look at the crowd. He has to literally start his talks by saying, listen, my shit is so out there. Would you mind just listening for a little bit before you, because right away there's going to be a percentage of people that are like, no. And so he has to ask the crowd right from the start, please just bite your tongue, bite your lip. We're going to get a little psychedelic. We're going to get a little out there. But what a great talk by both of those gentlemen. Welcome, Mr. Mark Scaldone, to the room.
Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good.
So Marcus, since you brought up the conversation, what did you learn anything in particular, or was it more of what you already knew?
No, I learned some more things. Absolutely. No, there was definitely like the information that he released. I mean, I had no real knowledge in regards to sort of the medicinal components of THCV or CBDV. So he quoted a bunch of different sort of cases in which they found certain aspects to be true under certain conditions. I posted a little bit of it about it on my Facebook page, but I'm going to save the majority of it for the video that will be uploaded today after Hash Church. It's just a short 35-minute video, and it's mostly of the screen. You can see Ethan in the bottom corner, but his talk is very much dependent on being able to see the slideshows, so I made sure that I recorded that as well. Greetings from Germany, Trichome lover. We are all also Trichome lovers here at Hash Church, as you probably have already figured out.
No, we're more like trichome sluts.
Trichome sluts. I like it. I'll take that. Well, shall we blow some smoke signals? Should we do that? This is the one day of the week, by the way, that I don't do my wake and bake video. So this is kind of right now, this is kind of like a wake and bake video within Hash Church. So for me, I haven't puffed
You mean you're not going to wake up at 7 a.m. and do your morning of Hash Church wake and bake?
You know what? Sometimes, Etienne, I'm so pathetic that I do. I literally puff for like hours, and then I'm like, okay, let's do the wake and bake. And it's like, I'm so baked already. But today, I can be honest, I haven't had a single puff. Not a single puff.
I was about to say, I think it would feel bad for you if you get so high every morning that you forget to actually turn on the video and like, let's wake and bake. You know, rough life, bud. Rough life. Love you.
Rough life. All right. Well, we got a bunch of people in the chat room. We got almost 500 people in the room. 9 minutes after 9. That's not too shabby. Thank you all for waking up. Maybe you're in Europe. Maybe you're on the East Coast. Maybe it's noon. Maybe it's 6 o'clock at night. But still, for those of you on the West Coast, we appreciate it because holy shit, we're not even sure how we're awake right now. Mark's lucky over there on the East Coast.
How many Hawaiian members do we have?
Oh, I don't know. We got any people from the great islands of Hawaii?
Yeah, if you're watching us from Hawaii, what island are you watching us from? That'll limit things quickly.
The one surrounded by water.
That's the one.
That's the one. That's the
Wait, there's
one I
one
run for sure.
It's still in the middle of the night in Hawaii, isn't it?
That's why I'm mentioning it.
No,
it's 6 a.m.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's early in the morning.
That's adorable. In the middle of the night. They're like in Asia or something.
They will have to have serious faith to be up at that time.
That moment where you left your grinder in the other part of the house and you're like,
Use your fingers.
No.
First world pot problem.
Use your dog to fetch.
I'm gonna have to get up and go get my damn grinder.
Use your dog to fetch.
I was trying, trust me. That was the first thing when it came over. I was like, hey.
Well, he taught him that. He just didn't tell him to unplug it. He has to unplug it first, you know.
Right?
Grinder that you have to unplug. Oh my god.
Yeah, we grind up so much weed. We use coffee grinders.
Yeah, we use coffee grinders. It's much easier. I mean, back in the day, I used to use the but if you put it in and just, you tap it just a couple of times, you can get a nice fluffiness as opposed to going and grinding it up like a coffee. And it's just
never over-grind your pot.
I will say this for the wet bubble people in the late 90s, early 2000s, when everyone had wet bubble hash. Those little grinders were a godsend. I would literally take the wet bubble hash. I would freeze it in the freezer, throw it into that little grinder and grind it into fucking powder, like literally like for so long. And then basically I could get it to the point where I could break it out, lay it down on the desiccant. I used cardboard at the time, and it would just suck the moisture out. And people who thought they ruined their hash were literally in disbelief when they saw how nice that smoke got. If you want to see an experiment of how badly you can fuck up nice resin, by all means, press it full of water and let it sit on your table there and play. It might be photogenic. It might be look nice, shiny with the water on the outside, but I'm telling you, the smoking experience, it almost burns like anything wet, slow, and it doesn't really like, it's not like we want that flash burn where it's so dry it's hurting. We definitely want something in between where the material actually is allowed to vaporize and evaporate while you're heating it up with whatever your heat source is. Yes, that is good info, OG Brick. For those of you that think you've ruined your hash, it's never ruined. Well, I shouldn't say that. It is ruined. I've hucked some hash right off the deck, but you can save it. There are ways of saving it. Just make sure you don't press wet resin. That's got to be like
or close it in an enclosed like a Tupperware either. Otherwise, you get a white little fuzzy ball.
Ooh.
And the earlier you freeze wet hash, the better to do this.
Yep, 100%.
And that's how I originally made my mix. I would get different hashes that would either come in blocks or dusty or in balls like that. And I would literally put them all, I would put them individually and then grind them up. And then I'd put them all together and then grind them up and then press it in my hand. And that was my original mix that I started with. And then, of course, now I do it now with my BHO and everything that I blended all together.
I just wanted to let Indra know, who's watching. I did send you the link via your messenger service. I just can't send it via email right now for whatever reason. So I guess I usually only send it out to Cuban, to Subcool, and to Indra. Cuban hasn't come in a long time. Either has Aaron from DNA. So really, kind of Indra's the last person I send it to. Via, he's saying he's not seen it. Now I've sent it to him 3 times via Messenger. If anyone can figure out a way to send Indra the link, that would be great. But I don't have the time. Watching Dr. Bob speak yesterday, wonderful, inspirational speaker. But at one point in time, he had this technical difficulty, and he had this amazing, his whole conversation is about flow. Like the entire thing is about flow. And so he was flowing so beautifully, and then all of a sudden he kind of hit his computer and the screen disappeared from the big screen, and then all of a sudden the flow was like and there's a few minutes of the video where it's just like, oh, I'm definitely going to edit this out. It's just a strange thing when you have this natural flow of energy and it gets stopped or redirected awkwardly.
The Illuminati, man. Blame it on the Illuminati.
Yes, we were absolutely blaming it on the Illuminati. I think Graham Hancock spoke before both of them, and he was talking about all sorts of wild stuff. Yes, OG Brick, he comes into the chat, but he does not come in on the link that I send him. You see, I send him the link that gets you right onto the panel. And so he has not been using that for the last like 3 to 4 months. So I'm going to stop sending it. That's not a threat. 570 people moving in to Hash Church. Oh yeah, Tony's on his way to the lab, and then he's going to come in. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation about some of the things that he's doing. I'm actually excited to talk about a few of the things that he's going to be bringing up today. In particular, his liquid, his new scientific discovery of, not his, but of the team of scientists that he's working with, and he's able to bring it forward to us. But I'll let him talk about that when he comes on. It should be good. Should be good. Come on, Johnny B, you're late for church. Well, Johnny B's at an event right now. He is in Calgary, I believe, at the Lift conference. So many conferences happening in Canada right now. It's kind of over the top. You get 2 or 3 of them happening in 1 week. It's like, man, if you're one company, you could literally spend $30,000 to $40,000 trying to hit all 3 of those at one time, maybe more, with planes and hotels and whatnot. Very expensive.
Oh, and then dividing up the product and representation of that product, and then giving them lunch breaks and all that.
Well, just the booth. Have you, when you go and buy a BPG booth or whatever, it's like 5 G's.
Yeah, I mean, it's the realities that come with it. It's not just there. You got to staff it, then you got to rotate them in for lunch and breaks and stuff like that. It's not an easy thing to do. It sounds easy until you're actually in the thick of it, and then it's 2 o'clock and you haven't eaten, and then your people are like, "Where's lunch?" And everybody's going. That's why a couple of times I've had to relieve. I remember I've relieved Tony, I think at Chalice, and he was so busy dabbing people out that he's like, I haven't had a chance to escape or get food. I was like, hold on, I'll go get some food. And so I would go and get him food and some drinks just so he could, you know. And that's just the reality of how it is when you're a one-man show doing it yourself.
Dude,
you know?
People like you are my godsend, because for whatever reason, I've kind of just been a one-man show for most of the time, most of my 18 years of Fresh Headies. I always just, you know, what I felt was this, that people were coming to the booth to talk to me. They wanted to ask me questions. They wanted to hear from me. So why would I get a booth and then just have someone else be there and not be there? That's why literally it took meeting Tony before I felt like I could actually work with someone else, that if they were at the booth and I wasn't, I felt confident that what they were telling people was the correct information. So that took like 17 years.
That was a hard thing for me when I was doing the booth, when I was working at Evolution. I never wanted to step away because I could roll off this hemp knowledge, just bam, 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 bam. And one time, literally, this is really bizarre. All of a sudden, one day I was at Jacob Javits Center in New York working the show, and we were selling, you know, hemp jeans and twines and stuff. This is 96 or something like that. And everybody went to lunch. Then all of a sudden I had 2 Hasidic Jews come up to me. One opened a book that had literally been, you could tell it had been trimmed and packaged, you know, safely over the years in somebody's loving, doting care. And he stood there, opened the book, and started reading. I could assume just in Hebrew, and the other gentleman started translating it to me. And just, I wish it was one of those times way before YouTube where I wish I could have actually recorded what this guy said. But he just laid at my feet just 5 minutes of the most intense Jewish knowledge regarding cannabis and how sacred it is. He said, you know, flax isn't kosher, cannabis is kosher, and he read all these different passages, and then just as quick closed his book, and the gentleman said, "Thank you, good day," shook my hand, and walked away. It was one of the most craziest moments I've ever had in New York City, and it was very enlightening and very beautiful, but at the same time, it happened so fast and it was so intense. I wish I could have recorded it. And then they walked away and never heard anything regarding it again. But wow. One of those little moments where I was standing there, everybody else had gone, and here I am just absorbing. And all I had wished is somebody else was there to hear the intensity as well as the knowledge, because there's no way. He kept reading and referencing. There was tabs in this holy book that he kept just going through and referencing. And it was just dumbfoundingly beautiful.
Was it the Torah?
It had to be, you know. It was a very thick book, and it was all beautifully done. It was gilded in certain areas. It was just, you could tell how literally old it was. And as a printmaker and person who used to work with paper a lot, it was one of the first things I noticed. Yeah, it's just.
It wasn't a really old copy of High Times, was it?
And nor was it a copy of The Emperor Wears No Clothes, an early edition, because I have those as well.
Could have been the Zohar.
Definitely High Times, definitely.
Could have been the Zohar.
Zohar.
Yeah, the Zohar is a foundational work in the literature of Jewish mystical thought known as the Kabbalah. And so it's, you know, I have a very limited experience with it myself, but when my father died, I started kind of like, he died suddenly in a motorcycle accident with his wife. And it kind of affected me in a way where I would get these anxiety attacks, and I would have these sort of like intense just feelings of anxiousness just whenever it would happen. You know, it was pretty heavy to lose my dad the way I lost him. And it was a friend of mine who bought me a book. I was reading voraciously at the time, like a book a week or whatever. And he bought me this book. I believe it was by Rav Berg, and it was called The Power of Kabbalah. And it was very much written like each page was a chapter, but of just this profound, deep sort of Jewish mystic knowledge that was very comforting to me during this time. I feel like it absolutely diffused and eliminated those anxiety attacks like 100%. So there's definitely something to be said for good, solid information, good solid information that hasn't been too contaminated or diluted or adulterated.
But we did learn that, and it was fascinating because then I started to research and talk to other people because we had a kind of a hemp section back there at the Jacob Javits Center, and found out that, in fact, in the community, flax is not considered kosher where hemp is, and which is fascinating because they're both almost processed the exact same way.
Right.
But however, it's the use of the flower itself. Of course, you can't grow flax like you can grow cannabis. You can grow cannabis 300 to 400 seed per square meter, whereas flax, it will choke each other out and literally compete, as opposed to it's a self-competing canopy in cannabis where each other touches, it wants to follow and chase, and that's why you get a very even canopy when growing large scale.
Well, I'll tell you, when we started growing hemp in the prairies for the first time, there was nothing like it. I mean, corn was the closest thing, sunflowers, but this stuff was like 10 to 12 feet tall, some of it. And it was just, it made flax look like nothing, like the little purple flax flowers that were like a foot tall or whatever from a distance, especially when it's like 400 acres or whatever. It just looked like a lake or something. And then you see the hemp next to it, on the property over, and that stuff is, 12 plus feet tall. The most unique color of green that you really didn't realize until you saw a giant acreage of it in the prairies, and then you see all the other greens and you're like, damn, that is a beautiful green. Just don't really notice it until you slap 20 acres or
well. And because we're dealing with hemp and hemp paper, I reached out to the Canaf people, and they would laugh at us saying, "Oh, why are you dealing with hemp?" But the same thing with Canaf. Canaf doesn't do the self-competing canopy. It will strangle out and kill out any other type of thing. And of course, that was the only alternative back then to paper in the United States. Whereas now, hemp will soon be competing. But again, we still need the mills to process, because we've lost a lot of the paper mills or destroyed those because, one, they were usually so toxic around communities and polluting of their waterways that they were shut down just due to toxicity issues,
Well, one of the things about the pot plant is it's beautiful in every way, and that's why it attracts us to it. It's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful to touch. It's beautiful to smell, beautiful to smoke, process, all the things that it does are beautiful. So all men are attracted to it. It's a universal attraction, and nobody is going to stop it. I mean, there's a lot of politicians out there who would like to stop it. There's a bunch more who would like to get on the payday bandwagon for it. But really, in the end, the pot will win out. It's not us, it's the pot. The pot's going to win out. There's no question about that.
Well, not only is it beautiful, but just remember, it's beautiful to touch, smell, and feel. But when you touch it, don't put your finger in your eye.
Oh, man, I'll tell you, I spent the last 2 days with resin eye. The last 2 days, I was literally like, this is insane. I just couldn't, it got in so deep. It started on the right eye, and I got some under my eye. I don't know, like in my eye and under, it was like down here. I'd never had that before.
Somebody needs to, there you go, chemist. Somebody needs to design an eye drop for dealing with that, because, man, that is absolutely painful, and it just won't stop. It's like
just a terpene sensitivity, I'm sure. It's just some sensitivity to some terpenes is probably way more than it should be, or something. Just eliciting some
or combinations.
Yeah.
Well, they make a great eye drop in India. It's black. It comes in a small bottle, and you drop a drop of it in your eye, and it feels like someone hammered a nail into your head for 2 minutes. But then afterwards, right away, your vision is as clear as it's ever been in your life.
You talking about Kajal?
Yes.
I've never used it, but I'm sure you would look great with it.
Well, I've seen the stuff out of Japan, which is they're into the mint eye thing, where you actually, the eye drops that have literal mint in them, so your eyes, like, they use it to stay awake. But
I have some. It's amazing. You drop it in your eye and you fall back on the bed for 5 minutes, go and then your eyes are good after.
Jeez.
It's amazing how white your eyes are too.
Right? You just bleach them out. It's just bleach and glass. That's all it is. Oh, well, shit. Bleach and glass. I'll put some in each eye.
Yeah, I put it in one eye first because I always like to do one eye at a time, and then you have to talk yourself into putting that second drop in.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you hit the one eye, you're like, okay, you gotta suck it up to hit the next eye.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, John and Sam, you spent a lot more time in India than I did, but there was kind of this underlining fear of getting, like, did you not meet people that were like not just sick, but potentially dying? Like I met this Swedish couple, they looked like they had some fucking hep C or something. They were turning yellow. They were like, they couldn't get away. I was like, you need to get on a plane and leave this country because you may just die here.
I can honestly say when I was in India, I smoked chillums with lepers. I smoked chillums with people who had elephantitis. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing about a chillum is you don't actually put direct mouth contact.
Yes,
so with a clean soft, I used my own softie, and so.
Which goes to show you the importance of not touching your lips to the softie, because when I did see it happen, this soldier guy came into our we were in Haridwar on the banks of the Ganges for the Kumbh Mela, the Maha. And this guy came into first he came in with his shoes on. He got yelled at by the Babas for that. That was strike one. Then he did some other shit I didn't quite understand, but it had something to do with the tea and drinking it before the Baba. I didn't understand, but he got another strike for that. And when he put his lips on the chillum, like literally like in his mouth on the chillum, well, then the Baba got so mad at him, screamed at him, and made him go put his shoes on and pick up his machine gun and walk away with his head down. It was quite a fucking experience, I have to say.
Dude, when I was in India, I went to a temple on the Ganges, and the river was wide open. A friend of mine and I, another guy named John, and we're looking at it and we thought, this is where we take our sacred bath in the river by the temple. So we stripped down to our shorts and jumped in and swam out to the middle of this river. And we're there and something keeps bumping my feet and knees. And John was saying the same thing. And so we decide, since we don't know what the hell's going on, to swim back in. And while we're swimming back in, a few more of these things float by to bump in front of us. And lo and behold, it was bodies. And there was giant turtles munching on them. Man, we got out of that friggin' water so fast. I mean, you could literally see a vapor trail behind John's butt when he hopped up out of the water and we saw that turtle munching on that corpse.
That's nasty. Was that in like Varanasi or somewhere down there?
No, it wasn't too far from Haridwar. And
wow.
We were just looking at all the temples there. You know, they burn the bodies on the banks of the river.
Only in Varanasi, not in Haridwar. The water's extremely clean in Haridwar, like crystal clean.
Well, there's people who look. That's what you're saying is true for the most part. But there's poor people aplenty in India who burn a dead body and shove it in the river.
Yeah,
and that's what we were experiencing. I mean, we weren't going to get in the river in Varanasi. Jesus Christ, it's a fucking nightmare there. You got all these bodies in it.
I went swimming in the river.
Of course you did. Of course you did, Sam.
I went swimming. I swam out, swam back pretty far. And when I've got pictures of it. And the funniest part was 2 days later, I had an infected ear from like inside my ear from the contaminated water. And I did see, I think, a few fingers float by, but no major bodies.
I was told that, I have actually read about the Ganges and, there's amount of bodies in there, but somehow it still self-pHs and those bodies don't contaminate the water.
I would not count on that being true. Don't put your ears under the water.
Yeah, for real. It depends on where you are too. Like I spent like almost 3 weeks in Haridwar right on that water during a time where millions of people had come to that area for the Maha Kumbh Mela, and we never saw a body in the river. We never saw a component, a hand, a foot, nothing, which is an impossibility in Varanasi.
You're pretty lucky, man. But let me tell you this. Farther up the river and further down the river, there's a lot of other things going on. There's a dam on the Ganges, and that dam is a fucking nightmare. Sometimes there's like a few 100 bodies at a time floating in there up against the dam wall. And they clean them out all the time and throw them. You know what they do? They throw them over the dam so that it goes down the river and keeps on going.
I am telling you, this is the final trip.
Yeah, your last boat ride. Old Black Joe.
You are the boat. You are one with the boat.
You are the ride.
Yes. If for those of you that have never traveled to India, I would say get it done. It's definitely a bucket list. It's definitely something to experience on this planet, that which is India. I think personally, because their belief systems are so open, seemingly impossible shit happens in that country. Like you could call it whatever you want. Most people that I know that have traveled and spent any amount of time there have definitely had weird, to say the least, experiences. And some have it, like I had my own experience that was definitely impossible. Completely impossible.
You have to remember that there's 86 different languages in India and 130 different dialects. And if you ask the Indians themselves, what do you think? What did the British actually do for you here? What did they leave behind that was good? They'll all to a person tell you that the best thing that the British did while they were there was they brought English. And people on one side of the river, because the British forced them to learn English, who spoke Gujarat, could talk to people on the other side of the river who spoke Malayalam.
Well,
They could finally say good morning. Say again, Tim?
They built railroads also.
Well, they did that, but the locals will say that the one thing that the British did was made communication throughout all of India possible, because there were so many different languages and customs there. I mean, Pidgin English in India is I know at least 6 different versions of it, from the south of India to the north of India. And they very much conflict with one another, and the people in the south base their Pidgin English off culture, and so do the ones in the north.
And India also has 400 varieties of mangoes.
Yeah, and 96 of them are edible by man, but just 96. The rest of them they use for animal feed, fertilizer, all kinds of other nonsense. And there's a lot, like for instance, guavas. Also, there's a ton of different kinds of guavas in India. I mean, you can go on a fruitarian's delight there. If you're in India, just make sure they don't wash the fruit that they're getting ready to give you in the water that they have. Take your own water and disinfect it along and reduce the chances.
When we lived in India, we lived in a hut that I built on the beach for a few months. And every morning, the fruit ladies would come by with baskets on their heads filled up with different kinds of fruit for us: bananas, mangoes, papayas, depending on the season. But I still remember this as one of the most enjoyable periods of my life, living in a hut right on the beach.
They weren't flying strawberries in from Chile in the off season?
No, there was no Chilean strawberries. It was pretty basic.
Awesome.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of India. Every single day you can have fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, every single day. You don't have to have anything in a box or in a can or from a bottle.
Well, we used to boil water with a little tiny gas pump stove and kerosene pump stove, and we used to boil rice. And we also boiled cracked wheat a few times for cereal and stuff like that. But we lived very vegetarian and very basic, and we were incredibly healthy at the time.
Yeah, that it comes to you when you change your diet and just have simple things for your body to deal with. And in a peaceful situation, your body will always try to go to homeostasis. It tries to attain that every chance it can, in between every can of Coke.
Homeostasis, or far from equilibrium.
That's because of the cans of Coke in between.
Well, the good thing about Coke in India was it was safe to drink. Well, I mean, relatively, compared to an Indian bottled drink that may or may not have organic living contaminants in it.
Yeah, except for the Coca-Cola plant and the Pepsi plant were both right there in India, and it was all bottled.
That's not true. But
it is true. They were right outside Bangalore. I've been to it, Sam. I've been right in there.
For a long period there, Coca-Cola was kicked out of India because they refused to reveal their trade secret formula. And you can remember very clearly, because what became big during that time was Campa-Cola. We're the only one.
Well, no, RC Cola was there, but listen, they've been.
Hey, are we arguing about cola on Hash Church right now? Let's not go.
That's one of the most important spiritual.
Hey guys, I got a question for both of you, since you actually been to India, and it's this. It's like, I know we call all these plants indica, but when you go to India, obviously that's all indica. It's actually in India. What is the diversity that you see from the southern tip, south of Goa to the northern areas? How much cannabis diversity is in India? And it is all indica, correct?
Well,
no, they have sativa.
No, John. I mean, no, they never had sativa. Sativa is a Latin word used in Europe to describe hemp. So no, they have narrow leaf drug varieties, but they don't have sativa.
Yeah, they're narrow leaf.
That's all indica.
They're narrow leaf drug varieties. They're indicas, and they are what people commonly think of as sativas. Until you get to the far, far north, up in the Himalayas, there is wide leaf drug varieties also.
How tall were the wide leaf drug varieties in the mountains? I've told that they never got above 3 feet. Is that true?
No, that's not true.
No. You do have an Afghani kind of hash plant, which I have some seeds for, that only likes to grow 3 feet tall. In South India, on the roof of a building in Bangalore, it grew 3 feet tall. From the very second set of leaves, it was flowering, and it flowered all the way.
But if we say Afghan, John, we're talking about pretty far north of the Hindu Kush Mountains and kind of out of, Pakistan. For people, geographically not so inclined, Pakistan separates Afghan from India. So you've got a pretty big friggin' space between India and what is now Afghanistan.
That's true, but I, along with a bunch of other people, took tons of seeds to India back in the day, and we used to hand out all the good seeds to our friends who did the growing there. So I know for sure that there's indica and sativa growing there. A friend of ours.
When you say bring the seeds, do you mean seeds from Afghanistan? What do you mean when you bring seeds from?
No, I brought seeds there from Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos from when I was in Vietnam, and I gave them to my friends in Goa. And when I went back, they had several very tall plants growing there that were.
What year was that?
Do you think all of these varieties went to Thailand from India?
Say what now? You got garbled.
What year was that, John?
Sam, go ahead.
What year was that, John?
When I went there with the seeds?
To Goa, correct.
That would have been in the 87, 88.
Because I took Kerala seeds to Goa in 72.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I took the seeds there in 87 because
Can I ask you guys, aside from all this, I took seeds somewhere bullshit. Do you guys think that all of the varieties that are in the, those islands now came obviously from India and China, Sam? That was my question.
Well, the stuff you find in the tip of India and the stuff you find all the way at the top in the Himalayan foothills and further up even is very, very similar. There's not a lot of difference between how the plants look, the ones that are there. And I'm not talking about seeds that we may have taken there. I'm talking about the endemic varieties. And there's a lot of them there. And you can drive by, like in Rishikesh, you can drive for 2 hours at 60 miles an hour through pot plants on both sides of the road. They're 15, 20 feet tall. And dozens and dozens of people out rubbing the stems. And I think for the most part, those plants have been there for a very long time. And I agree with Sam. They probably are all indica. But the one thing I did notice is the farther up the mountain you go, when you get up towards the high places, is the hash gets way, way better. the rubbed hash. It gets soft, it gets brown, it gets to where you can squeeze it and almost get oil out of it with your fingers. That's up
Himachal Pradesh.
Himachal. Yeah. You got to take a bus through there. You know, the buses there are mind-boggling. You can see through the floor. They go around these corners really fast. They drive like crazy.
Sometimes you have to push them.
Sometimes you have to push them out of a mud hole. I remember standing outside of a bus one day there, and we were looking at a mountainside up way high with binoculars. And I remember saying to the friend who was with me, Jesus Christ, I'm glad I'm not up there. Look at that fucking road that guy's going on. It is crazy. Hour and a half later, guess where we were? Same spot. We had to cross over that very same mountain. I actually got out of the bus and said, you guys go ahead on this, and I'm going to walk behind you, because I didn't want to be a party in case that bus slid off the road. Another 46 Indian people died today when a bus plunged 3,000 feet.
So, I took a Nepali bus from Patna up to Kathmandu, and I barely fit in the seat. So I ate a giant piece of hashish to make myself pass out. And I woke up and I was in Kathmandu.
Nice.
A friend of mine got hash in Kathmandu and rode a Nepali bus back down, and the hole in the floor, his hash fell through it, and he didn't know it until the end of the bus ride, and it was gone.
Oh, hey, Sam, did you know
this conversation? I was going to say, there's people in the chat room saying no sativa. It's not so much there's no sativa. It's just that, when you read Rob Clark's latest book, Cannabis Evolution and Ethnobotany, he points out that we mistakenly call things what we think they are instead of what they really are. And in Europe, when you realize that everyone in Europe that was growing ropes and fibers and making paints and varnishes around Columbus's days and earlier was doing it with cannabis. And when they were trying to separate the plants, they needed industrial plants. And the plant that was dubbed, if you will, sativa by Carl Linnaeus was really an industrially used plant. It wasn't a drug plant. And what we did in our hippie days is confuse narrow leaf drug varieties, which are really equatorial, with the word sativa. And our government did it, and everyone did it. And really, a majority of what we smoke, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, is from India or Afghanistan, is indica. And even the varieties from Thailand and other areas originally thousands of years ago in this same area in China and India, and then got migrated as people moved around and brought the seeds.
I absolutely agree with everything you're saying.
Right. Okay.
The truth of it is
people seem confused that there's like no sativa, and it's like, no, in India there's just tropical varieties. And me as a grower, I've always understood that when people said sativa, they were simply trying to say long flowering, more equatorial variety.
Which probably has less importance when you also think of, and Chimera's mentioned it on here, Ethan Russo mentioned it during his talk yesterday, and Todd even sort of mentioned it at the start of what he just said now. We should be calling things what they are. Botanists will care more about where things came from in the history. That means not much to me who's growing for medicine or for recreation, and all I need to know are what are the constituents. If it's not illegal for me, I don't care how long it takes to flower. I don't care how small of a yield that I get. These are prohibition-based mentalities that I don't need to understand. I just need to understand what cannabinoids are present, what terpene profile is present, and how does it interact with me when I use it.
Well, Mark, I think that's a fantastic misnomer, though, because at Positronics 20-something years ago, a lot of the people thought that a shorter, faster flowering Afghan or Hindu Kush would yield more than a longer flowering equatorial variety. Mm-hmm. And it's really not necessarily the truth, because one will perpetually flower. And if you know how to maintain it and handle it, there'll be smaller flowers, but there'll be flowers friggin' everywhere.
It's only the truth.
So it just depends on how they do it, I believe, but
exactly, it's the truth under the conditions they're growing in. If they're growing a short flowering, heavy yielding plant, and they start putting in a bunch of these narrow leaf drug cultivars, still in the same condition, not growing them like Australian size, 18 feet tall and 20 feet wide, and pulling 12 pounds, because I've seen more weight come off of those narrow leaf tropical grown sativa.
That's right. And you know what also it becomes, if you're an indoor grower doing sea or green style growing, it becomes a time issue, because even though you're growing an 8-week plant, if you have to give it 3 or 4 weeks pre-grow, you're at 12 weeks. If you're growing a 10-week plant, like like a Neville's Haze-ish type plant, and you got to give it no pre-grow, you're coming in 2 weeks faster than the guy that had to go 4 weeks on veg and then 8 weeks on flower.
Absolutely. I've always just focused for the last, 10 plus years or whatever. I've been in the blessed situation to not have to worry about when you're not selling your crop at the end of the grow, you're less concerned with how much you're going to get. And how, you're just like, when it's for yourself, you'll just want to make it the best that it can possibly be.
Right. When you're growing for yourself, it's just love. But, now that we're turning it into products and we're appreciating the scent and the smell and the flavor and the nuances, I believe that now you'll see the bagged appeal matter less and the overall effect and how it leaves you feeling and affects you mattering so much more.
Exactly.
But as you point out, Todd, this is the huge problem, which is nomenclature, and it's still a problem we have all over the world currently, is that Rob has recently, or to us that are enlightened, or not realize it's not that new information, but to the rest of the world, the whole indica sativa thing is still an issue because it's been so perpetuated through the smoking circles and misinformation, as well as the previous books for generations have basically put out this misinformation. So to have a master such as Rob Clark discover that that's not the case, it's taken much longer to make it to the ether, and it's still taking time for people to understand the difference that it, as much as is it easier to just go on the laziness of the nomenclature of indica versus sativa, we have to make concerted efforts to educate each other and those around us for the better of us all, because it's proper taxonomy now. It's no longer just hearsay and conjecture.
And and the reality is there's going to be real sativa in California now with hemp going in all over the place. And
I can tell you a funny story. When I made my first seed package back in the mid-70s, it was for Kerala, and it was I called it Cannabis Indica, and there was a picture of narrow leaf drug variety, and I called it Cannabis Indica because it was from India, and it was a drug variety. So I thought that's what I should do, and then for 20 years or so, there was a lot of controversy, and they said, no, that is cannabis sativa. It's narrow leaf. And finally, people have come back around.
What? That's further proof that is the correct nomenclature, because if you were on this 20 to 30 years ago, and they've all just kind of come around now, then of course, hello.
Well, dare I say, though, there's a lot of stuff that is called indica that isn't pot. It just means it originated in India. And I think that
was my thinking.
Yeah, back in the day, I mean, and that's why I asked, because when you go and look at India, there is everything from what we call indica, the thick leaflet plants that are short with big buds that flower fast, all the way down south. The southern tip, for people that don't realize it, of India is almost tropical. It's in the tropics, and those plants are going to be very different from the plants that are growing up in the mountains under colder conditions and having to make a warm, safe place for the seed and be able to deal with colder temperatures. So you've got very different plants.
Todd, can I ask you a question? Since you seem to be the expert on the plants, where they came from, how they grow, and so forth, I have seeds that I brought to India that I grew in Washington and California both, and I was very familiar for 12 years with the plants from these seeds. When I took them to Bangalore and grew them on the roof of my house there, I was like, what the hell happened to the plant? It was completely different the way they came out and grew up. Back in Washington.
I ask you this, John, in a sense, because when you think about it from a science mind, when you put a cultivar in a completely different environmental situation, and no matter what you did, you put it in a different soil base. So your medium was different from what it was in the Pacific Northwest as what you were used to, because you brought the seeds, you didn't bring everything else, right? So
what was the difference, John?
Didn't you just see different things?
Were they shorter?
Oh, and they were way shorter. They were 12 feet.
That's strictly from photo period in the south of India. The photo period there never gets long like it does in the north.
Well, I got that. It was on the equator. But this brings me to my second question for Todd. If that being the case, do you think how can you backwardly apply it to the theorem about all of the different things? I mean, maybe these plants.
Can I run this by you, John?
Maybe these plants all just grow differently under different circumstances, and that's the differences. And saying it is one thing or another might be way off base, because when I saw the ones grow on the roof in Bangalore, I was utterly amazed. They never got over 3 feet tall, and these were plants.
But can I say this? I mean, one of the things I've always found amusing when I'm talking about the way things grow, cannabis particularly, is that cannabis is so diverse. And when people want to generalize cannabis does A or cannabis does B, the first thing I think is, wow, they don't have very much experience actually growing cannabis, because I see incredible differences in the different varieties I grow. And I know that if I put them also in different environmental conditions, they will do very different things. And it's so much so that I've had 2 cuttings from the same mother in different parts of the flower room do so different that I thought honestly they were different phenos, because one flower filled up so much and the other one didn't. And I thought for a minute, shit, did I screw up my mother's? And I didn't. It was just environmental.
Well, the environmental plays such a powerful role in it. You could look at these plants that were grown in California, Southern California, and Southern Washington, and then take a look at them growing on the roof in Bangalore.
Well, can I ask you this, Sam?
You can think to yourself, maybe these plants are ash plants because they only grew 3 feet tall. In other words, different people, these seeds coming from one place to another place and then being grown there might be part of the confusion.
Well, it's all they're all hash plants. They all make these little resin heads that we love so much, and to varying degrees. So they're all hash plants. I mean, that's kind of a misnomer. Some make more dense amounts of trichomes, but they all make hash. So, but the next point or question I had is, if we go backwards into the 20th century and we go beyond the Vietnam War, prior to there being really any cannabis here in North America, or the scene in Canada for a long time wasn't cannabis, it was hashish. And it took really the Vietnam War happening and the hippies coming back, or the soldiers coming back from places like Vietnam and Thailand, bringing seeds and bringing plants that actually introduced those cultivars into the Pacific Northwest in the first place. Am I right, Sam? Those plants had to come from somewhere. And if weren't they coming from places like Thailand, Michoacan, Acapulco, Jamaica, Maui? These are all tropical.
Mexican in the late 60s in California. But the more exotic varieties like Colombian and Thai and these ones, you either had to grow them into Southern California. It was hard to grow those outdoors in Northern California.
Sure, but they all came from people bringing those seeds from tropical places to California in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s in order for us to have them here.
Well, in 65, I was sending Sanyo refrigerators full of Buddha stick back to my mom because there was no customs to go through when you were a combat.
But think about this, John. 65 was not that long ago. I mean, in the relative evolution of cannabis, it was the beginning of what became a tidal wave. And, you go back into the 40s and 50s, and none of these tropical varieties of cannabis was in Oregon, Washington, California, any of them. This whole influx of genetics happened during the 60s and 70s.
But go back to even the 20s and 30s, because the jazz era and things like that, they were smoking types of cannabis because that's what caused the whole stigma even to start up, the whole muggles and all that sort of stuff. So what exactly were those types of genetics were they smoking? Because they had to have come from somewhere because they didn't exist.
It must have been pretty good, Ken, because my mother smoked it, and she told me they called it reefer. And I said, well, why did they call it reefer? And she said, oh, they keep it in cold storage trucks when they move it around because of the smell, And so they must have had some pretty good cultivars. My mother told me that she remembers getting very, very, very stoned in nightclubs in New Jersey by the way, Todd, back in the 40s on pot.
Because I have recordings of hemp farmers back in the 34, and these guys were in their 90s and have probably since passed. Back in the 90s, John Lupian had went and actually recorded these farmers, because after they had heard that, their hemp was marijuana, they actually gathered together. And they said it was about 5 to 6 of these farmers got together, and they pulled a couple of plants from each one of their farms, and they literally stood there and smoked every part of it, they said, from the root to the top. And when they realized they didn't get high and it didn't do anything for them, they realized it was full of shit. But it became so impractical over time because the taxation was so intense that it became unaffordable for the individual farmer to have it. But there is not really much documentation of those cannabis or that cannabis that was smoked back then, because any of that type of that documentation or anything at the time was pretty much destroyed. Or hasn't been found through, and my friend John Lupian has been through 50 plus different research facilities through Freedom of Information Act trying to find stuff that was declassified from back then, and we never found any reference except to just cannabis, its name itself, but as opposed to any that actually properly describe the effects or the taxonomy or where the actual genetics came from, etc., is greatly lacking, I think. Sam, am I correct?
Well, I think a lot of it was coming from Mexico and maybe the Caribbean. So at least in New Orleans, which was where one of the first areas where there was declared a cannabis problem. But even in California, I forget where it was, they outlawed it in 1916.
Yeah,
so it was pre-37.
There was, I think the furthest thing going back was, 1909, which was the gentleman crossing the border from Mexico, I think was the first documented. And then before 1909, we can't find any reference to the actual terminology marijuana itself. We can find no documentation before then.
I think the first law in California was 1916. They may have been harassing people earlier than that, but I think it was legal to possess in California before 1916.
But can I ask you this, Sam? Modern cultivation techniques, like we saw in the book Sensimilia and what you ended up building a career around, it didn't start until the 60s. Am I correct?
No, it didn't even start till the 70s.
Really?
I mean, there were people in Mexico that were producing Simsimia. There was people in Colombia. There was people in Thailand in the 50s and the 60s. But in California, it didn't start until Eric and Wood's book came out in, I think, 76. That's when it really spilled out. People were getting a little bit of Colombian Simsimia or Thai Simsimia before that, but they weren't growing it and they didn't really understand the big picture until that book came out. A few people did, but hardly anybody.
Can I ask you then? A few people did. Old Ed Holloway, and I know he, from his telling me his stories, that he was growing in the 60s. I know that he first got turned on to cannabis in the early 60s when his sons, who were in their 20s, came back from Vietnam. And for those who don't understand who I'm talking about, Ed Holloway is the guy that taught Bernard Brunning how to grow seedless cannabis in the early 70s in Amsterdam, right? When Bernard, who would go on to found Positronics, was just a young hippie, and Ed was already in his 50s. He turned 80 when I was there with him in 1996. So he was always old Ed to everybody. But I know that gentleman was growing in Oregon and California in the 60s.
No, absolutely a few people were, but hardly anybody, really hardly anybody. The only reason I learned about it in the late 60s was because a friend of mine was importing Mexican Acapulco gold, and he brought some up, and some of it was seeded and some of it was not seeded. And I said, well, what's the difference? And he says, try them both and tell me what you think. And I tried them both, and I immediately found out that the Simsimia was a bit stronger and no seed weight. So you got twice as much dope, because back in those days, dope could easily be 50% seed weight.
That I totally get and understand.
So, but I still wasn't growing then, though. I didn't grow for like, let's see, that was like in the late 60s. Yeah. Well, for another 5 years or so.
For those listening, and John, you would really appreciate the story of Ed Holloway. He was literally a rocket scientist that was on the team of researchers that broke the speed of sound out at Edwards Air Force Base, and he took an early retirement. And when his kids came home from Nam on the first tours, they were the ones introducing him to cannabis, and he loved it, and he wasn't much of a drinker, and he took an early retirement and started basically chasing cannabis around the globe and collecting seeds. And by the early 70s, he was already in Amsterdam in what would become a flourishing cannabis culture for quite a while, for decades. And the gentleman was great. I could hold flowers up to his nose, and he would tell me the country he remembered they came from. It was really, really beautiful.
Ed was the originator. I mean, he was a pioneer, honestly, back in the 60s of cannabis. He was the one who, like you said, he turned, the Dutch on to growing seedless cannabis, which to cause Mellow Yellow, which was the first head shop, and et cetera, so his story needs to be told, because he went from rocket scientist to flying around the world and gathering genetics and breeding. And I mean, we would not know cannabis today without the knowledge of gentlemen like Ed Holloway or you, Sam. You guys are literally the Mount Rushmore for many of us because of what you've been able to do and perpetuate. So thank you from all of us.
Absolutely. Hey, Sam, have you been able to get your picture on each seed yet?
No, I've just got the DNA altered so that it's got the, besides the classical TCG, the 4 amino acids found in chromosomes, I've also included a new one.
Hey, wait a second. Base pairs found in DNA. Thank you very much.
Yeah. What did I say?
You said amino acids found in chromosomes?
Well, aren't they amino acids?
No, they're base pairs.
And what are the base pairs made out of?
They're made of base pairs. Proteins are made of amino acids.
Okay. Well, you know me, I'm not a chemist, but I get the big picture.
That's okay. I'm here just to set everything straight, man.
Wait a minute now. He was explaining how he has his DNA.
So I've inserted SK into everything, and I've flown over the entire world with jets. What you thought was them dropping some sort of mysterious gas was actually pollen from my males.
Yeah,
and I've pollinated every cannabis plant in the entire world with these SK marker genes, and everything belongs to me, actually.
Yeah, fortunately, there are no nucleic acid base pairs, S and K, but there are amino acids. The S amino acid is called serine, so that's a real amino acid, and the K amino acid is one called lysine. So yes, okay. So you do have 2 amino acids, but no, we don't have any base pairs for S and K, sorry.
Are you trying to say it's not all mine? My God, I've been living an illusion.
I've been living a lie.
You and everyone else, as long as Trump's been president.
Yeah.
Can we get a bong rip in the middle here somewhere?
How about right now?
How about right now? Let's do it. Bong rip, mother lovers. Come on.
It's about damn time.
I see you. I'm like, just waiting, bro. I didn't want to interrupt everybody.
It's the first time I've been faced with a dilemma like this. When I was in Southern California at the Cup, I got literally 3 pounds of concentrate samples. It was the weekend of my birthday, and while I was there, I ran into this guy, Chase, and everywhere I went, he went behind me, and as we would go to the different booths, he'd go, hey, Indra's here from Mass Church. And it's his birthday. So people were loading me up. And now I'm sitting here looking at 40 different concentrate bottles, deciding which one of these to open up first and jam in. But it looks like I found one from Critical Concentrates.
The best. Always start with the best and finish with the worst. Then you're always smoking the best that you have.
Well, I've never found one of these concentrates yet that I was given there that wasn't really outstanding. My favorite is strawberry banana. I have 8 different strawberry banana concentrates. 2 of them are right along with what Todd was talking about, making a feeling in your body. 2 of the strawberry bananas, when I dab them, it's just it's like someone poured a bucket of warm water all over me. I can just feel it go right in, and
that's literally what I just hit.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm hitting right now too. I love that strawberry banana, man. I tell you, it's the hottest thing since sunburn.
The hottest thing since sunburn. It's the hottest thing since fire.
That's funny because I like resin. When I take a big hit, it's like somebody threw a bucket of ice water in my face.
Right. Oh, is Josh back in the chat? Is that what's going on? Is that what's going
Holy
on?
mackerel.
Putting names on there or something and messing with us here, Bubble Man, or what?
No, but I did just read something funny about John's story. A guy named Chase was following him around. Irony. That's ironic.
Oh, you mean because he was chasing me?
Well, it's possible.
Followed by Chase. It's a linguistic fucking.
Was he from the CCC 420?
He's TDCR on Instagram.
Oh, TCDR, right. Okay, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, he's now, since you were hanging out with him, tagging me on every single post that he makes on Instagram. So I see his stuff come across my my history.
Listen, he was really nice to me. He took me to all the best booths there. He said, look, there's a lot of booths here, and there's a good portion of them that have just crap. He says, I'll take you around to the very good ones. First thing he did was took me up to the Guild Extracts, and I met the main guy from Guild Extracts, and he was very kind. He pulled a bottle out, pulled a tube out of his pocket, filled it up with these huge CBD crystals, and then he took another tube of terpenes out of his other pocket and covered them and screwed the lid on and said, enjoy, and gave me that. And I've been enjoying those crystals, and I tell you, when I'm ready to go to bed at night, I pop one of those little crystals out of that terpene soup and pop it in the dab thing and hit it, and boom, I'm off to bed, man. That stuff works like stink. But anyway, everywhere I went there, people were very, very kind. It was a beautiful show. I got to say, I don't think it was less than the Emerald Cup, though. I mean, it was a pretty swank affair. There was a lot going on there. There was a lot of fun. And I also got the chance to bring back and extract some kratom. And I'm told that kratom is sensitive, and over 100 degrees it degrades or thermally degrades. Right. So I extracted some of it, and I got a very, very pure yellow, heavy slurry extract that looks to be pure mitragyn or whatever it is they call it. But that stuff sells for $65 a milliliter. That's crazy.
You can start giving it out to people that are trying to get off opioids.
Dude, I myself, it not only does it help you, I guess, if you're on opioids, but I have a serious back problem. I've got 2 titanium cages, and they get irritated once in a while, and it's a nightmare. And when I take a dab of that, not a dab, I mean a dab on the end of a toothpick and put it in my mouth, of that mitragyn solution that I extracted, within about 10 or 15 minutes, my back is like no longer bothering me. So I think it's some kind of amazing stuff. I combine that with the CBD. I'll take the mitragyn and then smoke the CBD, and my body just takes a huge relax. I can just feel myself, because I'll take one of those breaths involuntarily, which is an autonomic nerve release. And that's your body telling you that it just went down one level.
Well, I'll tell you, there's nothing better for sleep aid than having a 2.5-year-old.
Yeah, I had 4 of them. Yeah, that was
yeah, well, this is my 3rd one, but I haven't had them all at once. They were kind of, one and then the next, and now this last one is, I'm 44, so you got.
That's the gray hair model. I had one at 44 too, and that's the gray hair model. That's the one that'll actually bring on all your gray hairs.
Well, I welcome my gray hairs. I've got them coming in. I don't mind gray hairs. I don't even mind if all my hair fell out. I'm kind of not attached to it in any way, shape, or form. I think of it kind of like just as something that's being excreted out of my head. I can take it or leave it.
You know, but when you grow a little beard, you look older. And when you shave the beard off, you go back to looking 25.
Sure. Well, my beard's like white, so
yeah,
I definitely got to look a little older with a white beard. Be like, damn, that guy looks like he's 26
with a 70-year-old beard.
With a 70-year-old beard. Yep, it's the truth. Well, maybe it's time for a little dry sift. Got some 09 cookies here I could throw on the dish.
Another bong rip, you're saying then?
Yeah, I've just been kind of puffing pretty steady here. I'm kind of bummed. I know in an hour, Ethan Russo speaks again on the endocannabinoid system, and he really did a great talk yesterday. I thought it was just nice, simple, understanding, and you learned a bunch of shit when you watch that guy speak. So
is Natasha down there, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Natasha and Dave. I went to dinner with them. They took us out for dinner the other day. We were supposed to go with Martin Lee, but his plane was delayed. I did end up seeing him as well yesterday, and I think he speaks today after Ethan. Cool. So it's possible that I get to see Martin speak. Depends on how fast I make it down there. I'm like almost an hour away from the University of British Columbia, but I got a little motorcycle that I can boot down there on, so we'll see what happens.
Be careful on a motorcycle, Mark.
Yes, absolutely. I carry that as my mantra, John, because unfortunately my father died on a motorcycle.
I know, one you gave him. That's why.
Yeah, with his wife, the whole 9 yards. It couldn't be any worse, really. So I carry that with me, and I'm more conscious about that than most people could possibly imagine. But at the same time, it would be like if my dad, died because a bunch of cannabis fell on him. I'd still probably use cannabis. I might just not stand under large amounts of it. But yeah, I love motorcycles.
Do you think more people get hurt on motorcycles because of their own actions or because some other driver wiped them out?
Well, that's hard to say. That's hard to say, though, D, because you're mentioning that from your perspective. And there are a lot of dolt motorcycle riders out there that ride these race rockets that are just like, they make bad decisions. I live on a highway that they ride on a lot. And every year, usually one of them blows off, hits a pole, breaks into 20 pieces. It's bad. So I don't know what it is. I know that the top guy, like the top motocross motorcycle dude that wins all the champions from Italy, was interviewed one day, and they said, why don't you ride motorcycles in the city, on the roads and stuff? And he said, because the idiot in the car. So you definitely have to be careful, because if everyone who got a license, and this is the truth, was forced to ride a little moped, like a tiny little 100cc bike for like the first 2 weeks or month, you would realize how exposed you are with those other cars. And I think you would go into driving a car a lot safer and realizing how deadly it is if you hit someone like on a bicycle or whatever. And it's just, from my perspective, people who ride motorcycles and understand motorcycle safety can be safer drivers in vehicles.
As long as you definitely got to be aware. And I know that when I ride, and I put 23,000 kilometers on my bike last year in 4 months. I ride it a lot. I don't like riding in the city of Vancouver or any big cities because of not just the traffic, but the heat that gets on my bike. You're stopping and starting, you're all that sort of stuff. I like to get on the highway. But I can seriously say that every single day, if I wasn't paying attention, every single time I went out for a ride, there's definitely been 99% of the time someone else has been there, and if I wasn't paying attention, would have wiped me right out. I almost got killed last summer on my bike. I won't even get into that story, but it was fucking cool. And the guys in the cars and everything like that, people are paying more attention these days and that sort of stuff because there's more signs and everything. But the bottom line is you're exposed and it's up to you. If you want to ride protected or unprotected, it's up to you. If you wipe out unprotected, you got scabs from head to toe. Me, I can ride my shorts sometimes because I'm not smart sometimes on that.
I've ridden with you in shorts.
Yes, I've ridden with Mark, and we've ridden pretty hard. I can say Mark knows how to ride his motorbike pretty good, and it doesn't matter how good we can ride. It's always somebody out there that can.
A good example is bicyclist in California. Everybody I know that rides a bicycle in California has been hit to some degree by a car. Everyone.
Twice.
Well, dude, they go
crazy.
down. They go down Highway 101 racing from way the fuck up
John's now explaining why he's hit a few of them.
No, I mean, but they're all over the road. In the summer, the roads in Northern California are covered with bicycles and bicycle accidents. I have seen numerous of them, especially up in the Lost Coast area where bicycles are thick during the summer. And people will come around a corner and there'll be like 30 bikes and they'll be in the middle of the road. And they don't. The bikers get the idea that, hey, we got the right of way, so it doesn't matter what we do. We can ride here 12 abreast. And
Indra, 1, fuck you. 2, I am a cyclist and I've been hit twice, and I was doing everything proper and being respectful.
Hey, I've never hit any.
There's a lot of bad drivers as well as bad cyclists, but you can't lump them all together. I used to have a cycling team. And on race days, you'd have people obliviously drive onto the freaking race course. So it takes all kinds, and don't generalize every single one into that reality, because I've known some of the best cyclists in the world, and some idiots just roll up on them with a bat and swipe at them because, they think it's funny to try to knock somebody who's riding their, on their bike, to knock them off, and not realizing the type of damage you can cause somebody.
Dude, I've never people. Even come close to hitting a bike, so you can nothing back. And I'm just telling you how the conditions were. I'm the person who slows down and drives slowly by bikers, no matter what, because I appreciate that bikes have problems sometimes, and sometimes people turn around to look to see what's going on, and they wander over into the lane. So when I drive by those people, I drive by them at 2 miles an hour faster than they're cycling, and I keep an eye out and I move over to the left side of the road. I don't have anything against bicycles at all. I rode bicycles from the time until I was in my 60s. I only quit riding bicycles then because the docs at the VA said, don't ride bicycles. You possible leg clot, don't fly in airplanes and stuff like that. And so I stopped doing that, but I walk like crazy. But believe me, I don't have any disrespect for bicycles in town. I think I used to go to the bicycle races in Switzerland where they have the wooden track where it's very steep and people get going so fast that you can't believe how fast they zip by. And we used to go there and sit at those races for hours. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was a great time.
This is where you say you wore an onion on your belt. I had an onion on my belt.
We have a track in San Jose. That's the closest track in Northern California.
Chen, have you ridden a bicycle in Amsterdam?
I have not my bicycle at one of the Dutch cycles. Yeah. Yes.
It's actually amazingly safe in Amsterdam.
Well, not only
all the cars are on the lookout for bicycles constantly.
You go out to places like Wageningen, and I love and appreciate the Dutch and a lot of the Europeans, one, that they raise their people properly, because I'm not going to deny, Indra, there is some shitty cyclists out there, and I credit a great deal of Europe where they actually educate children at a young age on the properly way to ride a bike. However, Europe has separate bike lanes, so that your bike lanes are separate from the roads altogether, except in cities like Amsterdam. But out in the outer line,
in Amsterdam, they're doing that more and more and more.
Good, because I was amazed by Wageningen and seeing how it's completely separate, and how a lot of these outer lying cities have really forethought and have included. Where I'm from, Southern Louisiana, I grew up riding on my mom's three speed on a 45-degree angle on shale shells. So when I finally got around to riding on flat, safe ground, because you couldn't ride on the road in Louisiana, they would run you off the road and kill you. And so I understood and have always respected that. So when I do dress, I always wear I wear proper gear. I wear bright stuff so I can be seen, because the 2 times I did get hit, I wasn't wearing bright stuff. I wasn't properly seen. And one time I even looked the guy directly in the eye and he still ran me over. So it's just the reality of just people just don't pay attention until, you know, you're literally crawling out from under their car.
Well, I'm definitely less worried about cyclists than cars. One thing that I can say I notice a lot, particularly when I'm on my KTM, because it's very nimble and I can move between vehicles towards lights and get into the other lane. And I can't believe how often everyone is on their fucking phone. They're all fucking driving on their phones. Like, it's unbelievable how many people, and it's like, man, it's like a $300 ticket. Plus,
here in Amsterdam, all the people on the bicycles are on their phone, and it's illegal, just like driving a car.
it should be.
I mean, hands-free is legal, but yeah, you in a car, I mean.
Yeah, well, there's some places where it's illegal to walk and talk on your phone at the same time, because it seems in America that people can only do one thing at a time. So while they're talking on their phone, they'll walk into a deep crevice in the sidewalk.
Well, I've seen some I remember riding bikes with my friend years ago in Amsterdam. So many things to pay attention to, particularly if you're first in that city and you're all stoned up. If you've been eating edibles, forget about it. But you've got the trams, which will straight kill you. Like, you cannot get hit by a tram. So that's the real main thing to avoid. Cars in all directions. Bicycles like crazy. People crossing the street. If you put your head down for a second, you can definitely get smoked. I watched my friend drive her front tire into the tram track at a very high speed and literally flip over the handlebars. It was not a funny situation. I can laugh about it years later because she didn't end up in a hospital and lose teeth or anything like that. But I literally thought she was dead the way she flew off the handlebars onto that cobblestone. Even the sound that the tire made when it went in and just poof, poof.
We have that problem in San Francisco because of the trolley. The trolley actually has one of those, and you can actually put your tire in that. And I've seen that happen. And yeah, it's ass over tea kettle for them. Not good.
Well, local natives know better than making their tires parallel with those.
Right.
What was that, a 10? Can you say that again? That's what? Over tea kettle?
Ass over tea kettle.
New saying. Thanks.
It's from 1911, actually.
I was about to say it's a very old saying.
Well, I like very old sayings. Quite often when people ask me how I am, I say fine as a frog's hair, or not bad for a sharecropper.
Somebody is asking if I think the Berkeley mycology course is good. I have no idea, but I do know the former head of the Mycological Society who does live in Berkeley, and he's a really good guy and makes some of the most amazing chessboards. Somebody was asking in chat there, because I have no idea. I haven't taken any mycological courses except the bioassays that I have done from time to time.
Paul Stamets courses will pretty much get you to where you can produce any kind of mushroom.
And
or identify.
For foraging, David Aurora used to give classes at UCSC that were incredible. Me and my wife took them.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I am a practicing mycologist. I loved growing mushrooms. I loved going out and collecting them. Edibles as well as psychedelics, both were the ones that sort of I fancied, if you will. BC is so ripe with so many different psychedelic and edible mushrooms that it's definitely a nice thing to learn. It's kind of like one of those things that you want to be very careful with. Sort of when in doubt, throw them out, rather than destroy your liver and kill yourself. Because it can happen with those deadly gallerinas. Hell yeah, you don't want to be eating gallerinas.
Are you saying that dying is not a good trip?
Yeah, dying's a bad trip, dude.
Here in Amsterdam, you can order, I don't know, 5 or 10 different varieties through the mail. They won't send you mushrooms, but they'll send you Scarola stones or philosopher's stones.
Right.
Fresh mushrooms are still legal in Amsterdam, right, Sam?
No.
What's that?
Fresh mushrooms are still legal in
I think the
Amsterdam,
fresh
right,
ones
Sam?
might be.
Yes,
Dried
they are. You can't get dried. You just can't get dried.
But they can't sell fresh mushrooms because they go off so fast. It doesn't work out.
Hey, I know this is off subject and everything, but on Monday I'm going to be putting up the temple ball tape on how to make temple balls. It's about hash without water.
I already saw it. It was already posted, and then you took it off again.
I took it off because one of the people that was in it the next day decided that they didn't want their face in such a video. So I had to pull it down, being re-edited right now, and it'll come back up. But it's very, very clear how to make temple balls nice and soft.
If anybody is willing to send me $9.99, I'll send them the unedited version.
With the guy's face in it, right? He saved it off. Sam's all screenshotting everything.
He's doing a Netflix hostage thing.
You got to title that Cold Balls.
Listen, oh my God, Cold Balls. You do have to title that Cold Balls. On the side note,
for many reasons, I think, too, really. I saw the video, too.
I've been there, Indra, with what you're going through. I have filmed videos with people. I have taken a ferry, filmed a 3-hour footage, cut together 40 minutes, edited, uploaded, like literally half a day, 14 hours of work. And it was up for 8 minutes when my friend texted me and said, "Oh, dude, if you don't take that video down, I'm getting a divorce." So I was like, gone. So it happens. It's like sometimes people don't want to be in videos that you make, and it's like you got to respect it even afterwards. It sucks though when you've got.
Oh yeah, well, I learned a lesson from here on out. The videos are of what I'm doing. They're going to be hands and what's going on, and no faces in them because people get that way. They, But hey, thanks, Todd, for that idea of naming the video "Cold Balls" because that works out pretty good. And I think I'm going to go ahead and use that if you don't mind.
Absolutely, you should. I don't think he was being sarcastic.
You're welcome to use my Sam I Am little doll.
You know what?
Need somebody to walk it through.
Willie Groves has just added to Todd's name. You should call it Indra's Cold Balls.
Oh, jeez, Christ. I just saw that on the, Willie Groves.
Well, hey, I'm not the one to put the bowl in my lap, okay? That's all I'm saying.
That picture I sent you, Mark, of the a quarter ounce of terpenes bubbling in the terpene collector?
Yes.
I was going to smear them all with terpenes and call them turple balls, but I like the cold balls thing, Indra's cold balls thing, much better.
Yes, absolutely. I remember, didn't Tony and you make Turple Balls? Didn't he come over there and drop off some terpenes or something, and that was the birth of Turple Balls?
Yeah, it was. But that time when Tony was here, everything went in a hurry, and they didn't come out soft because we had too many trichromes. And when you're making these Turple Balls, it's interesting. 2 grams too much terpenes, and they turn hard. 2 grams less, and you can squeeze them in half with your fingers. It's like a tipping scale somewhere along there. Just an extra few grams makes all the difference in the world in how the temple balls come out.
Makes sense.
Does it? I couldn't make head nor tails of that. Why?
It makes sense in the sense that there's always particular ways. It's called know-how.
Terpenes are a solvent, and it's dissolving some of the cannabinoids, and it's making it pliable.
I understand that, and I know that when it gets to a tipping point, it's like a glass of water. When you pour enough salt in it, finally the salt starts building up. And I understand that that's it, but it's so sensitive. Just 1 or 2 grams difference in the formula makes the balls either really soft and pliable, or it makes them so that you've got to cut them up with a knife. So interesting anyway. But I'll be posting that video again Monday evening. And it's everything. Even at the end, you'll notice that I put a warning in there not to use gloves when you're making it. You're going to have to clean your hands really well, anesthetic, and then put your hands in water and make the temple balls, because if your fingers are wet, they won't, the balls won't stick to them. I'm sorry about that. I should have thought about that sentence before I said it. But in any case, if you keep your fingers wet, you can roll the temple balls up without getting any kind of a mess going. And that's an important part, because they're going to be soft. They're going to be a little sticky. And if you try with gloves on, what you're going to have is a pair of gloves that's completely covered in temple ball and oil. And the only way you'll be able to get it off is put them in the freezer and then take it out when it's frozen and, pull the gloves like a rubber band, and then it'll all fall off in the tray in front of you. But anyway, it's just a good idea always to get your fingers wet when you're dealing with oil products anyway.
Remember, boys and girls, when handling Indra's balls, make sure your hands are wet.
So they don't stick.
Shame on you.
They don't want them sticking to you.
Yeah, don't want my balls sticking to you.
You don't want John's sticky balls.
I would say melts in your hands and not in your mouth, but that sounds disgusting.
Yeah, this has gone way south from where I started, guys.
Well, it did. You can't control it. It's Hash Church. It's the internet too. You say shit, people get a hold of it, then the chat's going off. Now it's just like we can't
balls to the wall.
It's balls to the walls.
I gotta interrupt this whole fucking talk here about cold balls, Indra's stuff here with the cold nuts.
Wait a second. I have a chemistry question. How often do I have the chemistry question?
Ball rip.
What terpenes are you adding to your temple balls? Are you using the same terpenes that you're capturing from that same variety, or is it just a generic cannabis terpenes you're just adding to hash that's made from different?
Well, where I get the terpenes at, Mark, is I've got this new cold trap. Essentially, it's a solid state one, and it's very, very, very efficient. You can set the temperature on it. It works even under pressure. Like if you want to steam distill, you can capture terpenes with it as well. But it's very efficient. And what I try to do is, if somebody gives me something and then they want it decarbed, during the decarb, I run that atmosphere back to the terpene collector. And yesterday I was able to collect, I think just a little over 88 ml of terpenes with it.
From how much material in the extractor?
It wasn't in the extractor. It was in I stuck it in the vacuum oven. And
okay. So
I was decarbing it, and so I had two 8 by 6 or 12 by 6 trays. And they were each about a 1/4 inch deep in material. I don't know, maybe 2-3 pounds, I guess.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand this. So you're taking oil that you extracted, so a BHO oil, and you're finishing off in this oven and using this device.
I'm not finishing off. I'm taking oil that I made, and people want it decarbed. And so I use the oven to decarb it. While it's decarbing, I also grab the atmosphere.
I gotta ask a dumb question to you there, John, though. You don't need to vacuum it to decarb it. You simply need to heat it. So why are you putting it under vacuum to decarb it and stealing the terpenes?
I understand that.
You're taking the terpenes away.
Try not to all talk at once. Try not to all talk at once. One at a time. There's a chat. You can get in an order and all say your piece.
Okay, well, I'm decarbing it anyway. And so while I'm decarbing it, why not collect the terpenes, Todd? I mean, why throw the wash out with the baby? Okay, so
they're the terpenes that go with the product. So if you take the terpenes away from the cannabinoids, you've just devoided the product of being pretty good.
Listen to what you're saying. Listen to yourself. When you're decarbing the stuff, it's going to go off to atmosphere. So why collect them? And then if the product needs it, or if the people want it, they can put it back. But
no, it makes really good sense.
Say again.
I was just going to say. Oh, go ahead, John. Finish.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say it makes really good sense because you're heating up the extract, which has the terpenes to give a decarbed or activated oil to trap those terpenes that are being given off, because the terpene volatility is such that as you begin to decarb, you are going to begin to lose the terpenes from that extract,
or alter them.
Yeah, well, it's probably going to alter them somewhat, but so John, so that's just sort of like a generic, terpene mixture that you're grabbing from a decarboxylated extract, but then you're adding that back to, say, like a dry sift that's from a different cultivar. Is that what you're doing?
No, I could do all of the above, but at the present time, I just made one set of temple balls as a demonstration of how low tech you could do it and not use water. I used a stainless steel bowl, some liquid nitrogen, and a 2x4 to make the temple balls. I put the oil under the surface of the nitrogen, ground it up with the 2x4, added the terpenes, ground it up further, took the bowl out and set it in the sun. When the nitrogen was gone, you could grab. We left it out in the sun for a couple hours, and it just totally congealed. When you bring it back in, you can pull a ball out and roll it up, and you got a temple ball. And so I did it as a demonstration. So what cultivar? It was my friend's cultivar. It was his oil. I don't know. But it was a general film showing that you don't need a lot of high technology. You don't need a cryo grinder, a 2x4, and a stainless steel bowl did the job. And that was the whole reason behind it, so that other people who don't have access to that kind of stuff could understand how easy it could be to do that. All you need, you could use a baseball bat and a stainless steel bowl. And so it's very low-tech method of getting the job done. And that's why I made the video.
And can I point something out, and can I ask Sam a question? And it's, from what I've read, you can decarboxylate THC at as low as 160 degrees over a longer period of time and not lose that much of your terpenes.
You're going to lose terpenes at 160.
You are, but your THC will decarboxylate faster at higher temperatures, right?
Well, you know what? When I decarboxylate, I do it at 164, and I do it over 24 hours, and I do it under a very high vacuum, and it works just fine. And I collect the terpenes anyway, because they're going to disappear into the vacuum pump if I don't. And so I collect them anyway, and I can put them right back in the oil.
Can I point out one other thing for Todd's purpose is that it's good to do that in a vacuum, because again, you're avoiding any air that's in there, because when you heat up THC, it's going to, in air, like most recipes for decarboxylation call for, you're going to start to oxidize to CBN and the intermediates on the way to CBN. You can't keep that from happening. So by doing the
you can also just put
either under vacuum
and close it.
By doing it either under vacuum or under a blanket of nitrogen, you're inhibiting the formation of CBN. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All I asked is you could put your oven under a vacuum, close it, turn off your pump, and leave it. If you're decarboxylating under a vacuum, under heat, terps don't go anywhere. It's like a closed chamber.
Yeah, they do, Todd. You're way wrong, man. You know where the terps go? They go all over the inside of the oven, on the glass door. They go everywhere. I have opened my thing up and squeegeed out terpenes, heavier terpenes, many a time. And so they do go out, and they do go somewhere. All I'm doing is collecting them. So for some reason, you have no objection to that.
Honestly, no, John, I'm just surprised. In earlier shows, you said that you didn't use vacuum ovens because your tech didn't need it. So I'm surprised that now you're using vacuum ovens. And I'm sorry. It's
listen, quit trying to dig a hole, shithead. I use the vacuum oven.
Shithead. No, I'm listening to you.
I use the vacuum oven for a reason.
Calm down, guys.
I use the vacuum oven to make I know how to treat the stuff so that you can put it in a pen, no matter what oil it is, using a vacuum oven. And that's what I do with the vacuum oven. And then now I also decarboxylate with it. But do I use it after my thing? I don't need to, because my oil comes out not needing that. Someone gave me a vacuum oven, and I started looking at ways to use it. decarboxylating was the first thing I did, and I realized when I looked at my pump afterwards that had a bunch of sticky stuff in it. So I started collecting it. And end of story. I mean, you got an issue with me having a vacuum oven, even, Todd. What's your fucking problem?
John, earlier in our conversations, you stated you didn't use them. When I met you,
don't use them for the thing you're talking about.
You're saying that somebody gave you a vacuum oven. Cool. You're playing with a vacuum oven now. John, it's just different from what you said earlier. That's it. You're very defensive.
Yeah, I'm defensive because you're trying to make me look like I'm a liar, and that's bullshit.
Both of you need to chill out. Remember, we're in church here, bros.
Yeah, exactly. Just chill out, you guys. It's all good. It's like.
Besides that, yeah. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, you know what?
Bong rip.
I will say this one more time. Apparently, that's pining. The lack of pining in your concentrate. Sam, this is what Ethan was saying the other day, and how it offers this clarity, this terpene that can, and he broke it down so crazy. It was this chemical process in the brain that I wish I could say it as beautifully as he did, but I'll definitely try to point it out with a little.
Get him to come on church, Mark.
I've invited him a bunch of times. He said that the company he was working for might not like it, and I was like, well, dude, you're always welcome. We'd love to have you. You got great information, but
tell him he can come on and he can hide behind a little furry animal.
Yeah, exactly. I try to tell him that, I'm like, Sam comes on, he's like a doll. He's a stuffed animal with like a red boa around it.
What does that make me? I'm a furry animal. I mean, what the hell, dude? You don't have to hide behind some furry animal.
Not a little furry animal. You're a fairly good-sized furry animal.
Okay, well, we could tell him we want to talk about a small furry animal and that we want to discuss beaver.
Wait a minute.
God, you guys.
Wait a minute. Scaldone's more like a muppet.
Bong rip.
It's okay to disagree. It's okay for us to disagree. It's okay for us to be different. We just got to not take it too personally and be upset about it. It is what it is.
It's okay to be different and all that, but it's really strange to have somebody start pointing out your differences and trying to make you into something else from it, which is exactly what was going on. So what? I have a vacuum oven. Guess what? I have more fucking equipment here than you could point a goddamn stick at. You know what? I have a complete laboratory set up.
Time out. What if the stick had like 20 sticks that came off the end of it in all directions?
If you were standing in my laboratory room, you would be pointing at something no matter where.
I'm just being silly.
There's nothing wrong with having a vacuum oven. Don't get me wrong. I don't need a vacuum oven for my process. I have it.
I could tell you a funny story about vacuums. Okay, I used to vacuum my cannabis. So I'd have an ounce of haze. I'd put it in a mason jar with the screw lids that you could vacuum seal shut. And I found it preserved it really actually quite nice. But then one day I was sealing up like a pound of it or whatever into little jars for each week or each month, whatever I was using. And I noticed that under the vacuum clear dome bell that I was using to vacuum these jars, I could vacuum 6 of them at a time. And I noticed that a filmy white gas was filling the room, and it smelled just like terpenes. And what I realized is that the cannabis under vacuum, the terpenes volatilized at much lower temperatures, like at room temperature.
Like they should, absolutely.
And so I quit doing it that way because I decided I didn't want to lose the terpenes, even though it was a great way to preserve cannabis, especially if you kept it dark and cool. But what I did in the end was nitrogen wash. So you flush out all the oxygen with nitrogen, and that I found was better than the vacuuming and losing a little tiny bit of terpenes.
Well, I quite often rescue older pots. Sometimes people will come up and they'll say, I got some really amazing stuff, but it's over a year old now. And what do I do with it? And you can make a good extract of older pot, and the oil isn't really harmed or hasn't changed appreciably from the time when you would have chosen to do it normally. I still advocate fresh buds for extraction over any dried stuff. The fresh bud extraction is superior. The resin's superior. It's just like making flour out of or resin out of a fresh bud. I had some rosin at the High Times Cup that these guys were pressing out of fresh buds there, and I think that was the strawberry banana. I was going back and forth between Tony's table and the other guys who had strawberry banana, because Tony had some strawberry banana or some banana something at his table that we were dabbing.
Banana goo, strawberry banana goo.
Oh, strawberry banana goo. Yeah, that's what it was. And so I kept going. I kept going from there to the other places where people had strawberry banana, because strawberry banana was a big thing at the cup, and a lot of different entries of it. And so I tried to get some of each, and I got 8 different ones. And out of the 8, 2 of them were quite amazing.
Did you try the Cavendish one?
No, I don't think I have a Cavendish one here.
No, that's a banana joke.
Oh, I see. Well,
I knew it was gonna be some man. Sometimes Sam's humor is like elusive. You really gotta like be on the ball at all times. I was like,
that was slippery.
It was slippery. It slid right under.
Well, as long as you don't step on it.
As long as you don't step on it.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Or in it.
This should be called Laugh Church. That's all I'm saying.
Today's episode has been a bit of a laugh church. I hope Tony gets his internet working and we can see some of the lab. He was showing it there for a little bit. I saw some Sasquatch presses and some Bubble Now washers. See what happens.
He must be working his pictures up.
Yeah, he's probably trying to get it going. Share some stuff with us. I know he had some good stuff to share today. I kind of wanted him to talk. Earlier when I went into chat before Hash Church opened up, we were kind of talking. You know, a lot of people are still in that situation where it's like anything serious is like any type of serious ailment. A lot of people are still of the mentality, just give that person as much, you know, like give them like 5 grams of resin every day, or a minimum a gram a day. And then, you know, Prana has the sort of different approach where they've collected their data, created this porthole, created this program, created this digital landscape, if you will, to sort of take a little more of the guessing out, but also to take out some of the excessive dosing if it's not necessary. And they've had pretty good success with like serious ailments, cancers and autism and all sorts of different things where microdosing has been positive. I'm not sure it's not the be all end all, like therapeutic dosing probably isn't. I prefer a quiver nowadays, but it's nice to cover all the aspects of the quiver. So I was hoping that Tony was going to come in and talk a little bit about that at one point today. We'll see what happens.
There's a lot of other people out there who practice microdosing very successfully. Bach flower remedies and things like that. And so it's not inconceivable that microdosing cannabinoids is at least going to get your body's cannabinoid receptors in the on position.
Well, even more than that, but putting cancers into remission, you know, that's pretty major, especially when it's like stage 3, stage 4.
Yeah.
I think it's time for another bong rip.
And now with the new healthcare we have, we'll all be even more grateful that we have cannabis.
No doubt. I don't even try to pretend to understand that.
Well, healthcare is now accessible for everyone. And by the way, Rolls Royces are accessible too, but can you afford one?
Yeah, exactly.
That's been your best metaphor yet there, John.
That was a pretty good one.
That was a good one. That one was rolling. We're all the way through the joke. That was good.
Oh, yeah.
What we need to do is convince Trump that the way we can reduce medical expenses across the board is with, you know, herbal cannabis. If people can grow their own herbal cannabis, they're going to lower the general expense of medicines. It's been proven in several states already.
I think he would let it happen tomorrow if he was the only one you could get it from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it would happen tomorrow if it could be proven to be effective as Viagra. Then he would legalize it.
Yeah,
I just saw this past week that his group is putting together a cannabis business thing for people to invest in properties.
I saw that.
Not kidding.
Yeah, well, he wants his piece of the action, and he wants his cronies rewarded.
I wonder, though, is it going to be named Ivanka Buds or Kushner stuff?
Trump
Kush
cannabis.
Bush.
Trump cannabis.
It'll be in a little gold pack.
Trump.
No, it's going to be Kush Nerds.
With Trump stamped all over it.
Yeah, Kush Nerds.
Terrible. Please no. Please no.
Yeah. Well, you got to wonder because she just got her trademark approved in China at the same dinner that the
You mean
premier.
China? You mean China?
China.
Gina. It's Gina. It's with a G. Gina.
No, with a J.
Okay.
China.
I thought it had a C on the front of it, but all right. China. Anyway, and then Jared Kushner is busy selling citizenship applications for $500,000 for an apartment in New Jersey where he owns the land all, telling these Chinese people, come to America and, start your dream over again. But in fucking New Jersey, right? Anyway, they don't know. So New Jersey sounds to them like something new. New Jersey, let's go there.
In good news, the federal government doesn't have any new spending budget to actually come after us until at least September. So that's a bit of a reprieve, so that this actual summer in California with legalization is going to go down without government helicopters flying around like we were so used to in the 80s and 90s. So that's kind of something to celebrate.
Yes, unfortunately, in two states were left out of that, right? North Dakota and North Carolina because of their recent modifications. So hopefully they still get protection or are afforded the same. But for the most part, that was very huge part of the reality that writer is bought by Rohrabacher, who is one of the original supporters of Trump. So Trump is always rewarding those who surround him. So the looks like Sessions has no money to go after those that are doing it correctly. But if you're not doing it correctly, Jesus.
How could two states be left out? I just wonder.
It's probably just the drafting of the language that were the most recent. I don't know why. It was just after it went through. Tom Angel, who puts out a great listserv with information, he put out that information right afterwards. So that's all we know. And when we looked at the language, those two were left out, unfortunately, and it's already signed.
And
So.
I wanted to move to North Dakota to grow bud, man.
Yeah.
Hey, don't make fun of North Dakota. We used to go down there for vacation.
Where?
But are you trying to prove my point?
To North Dakota. I lived right above it in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
So, I mean, what did you do? Go skiing? Just
Well, we'd go down to okay, let me think. I got to think. We went down to Fargo. We go check out Fargo, do some shopping, maybe get some of those unique Reese's peanut butter cups that the Americans have that us Canadians don't have. There was random little bits of candy and stuff. We'd go to hockey tournaments down. Oh, where was the hockey tournament where we stayed at the Patch? The Patch. Never forget the Patch. Yeah, these were the spots when you live in Winnipeg. Listen, the big vacation was Minneapolis. When you got old enough, you drive down to Minneapolis, go see Dave Matthews or Fish. This was in 92, 93, 94, 95 before I split and moved to the West Coast. This was Canada, man. Living in the great.
That's how boring Canada is, that you come to North Dakota for vacation.
Well, no, let's not generalize, because now I live on the West Coast where the Olympics happened up in Whistler. I'm sure the X Games will be here one day. I have killer whales jumping out in front of my house with dolphins, epic mountains and glaciers surrounding me for some of the.
Yeah, you're in the cool part of Canada.
Dude, I am in a great part of Canada.
You extradited yourself from dumb Fuckistan, right?
Well, the cool thing about Canada is that if you're, well, not even if you're Canadian, you can come here from wherever. But you generally are able to live anywhere you want. If you're from Newfoundland, you can move right over to BC. If you're from BC, you can move right over to Newfoundland and anywhere in between. So I thought it was pretty sweet when I got to 22, 23 years old and started kind of like, you know, those mountains are calling my name. I don't need to be taking these long trips just to go see bands that I like. I could live there. And so I moved here in 1996.
Hey, shout out to North Dakota, though. Much love. I've actually been to. Anybody else been to North Dakota? It is actually it's beautiful. I mean, it really is. But there's definitely not a lot there. But much love.
As an adult, driving around, if you wanted to go check out like the nature. You know, Winnipeg, people think, or Manitoba, and generally there's like, oh, there's no nature. It's like there's tons of nature in Manitoba. You just have to go to it and put yourself through the hell that is the bugs that exist in that area in the summertime, especially. Brutal. Came out here. I was like, why doesn't anyone have screens on their windows? And it's like, we don't have mosquitoes. I'm like, oh, sweet.
You been to Great Falls, Montana?
I have been to Great Falls, Montana.
Another thriving metropolis in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, fish. If you follow fish around, you'll end up at all sorts of random fucking cities throughout America. They got like a venue, and especially in the 90s, because the venues were much smaller. So you'd really end up in, I guess, off the beaten track or whatnot.
That used to be the way you'd go to Great Falls, Montana to go up the Alcan, the Alaska Canadian Highway to Alaska. And we went, my dad drug us around quite a bit. He was in the Army. And when we came back from Okinawa, he would go to Detroit, buy a new Ford station wagon, drive us all the way up the Alcan to Alaska. So been through there a lot.
That's cool. I'm getting ready. I'm finally going to Alaska in July, and I'm swinging actually through Victoria.
Dude, what do you mean you're swinging through Victoria? It's an island.
It's Vancouver. I guess we're stopping on the boat, and we're going to stop for a day, and I'll wait.
So I have to come to Victoria to chill out with you?
It's Vancouver. I think we're coming into Vancouver.
Okay.
Well, are you taking the ferry up to up to where the highway gets to Alaska? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm taking a ship out of San Francisco and going up to the glaciers and then swinging back down.
Nice.
Because I've never been to Alaska, and so I figured I'd go there and check it out. So we're gonna go to Juneau and see that, and then swing back through Canada again.
Very cool. Very cool. That'll be a great trip, man. Alaska's serious place.
And it's during July. It's like during the only time when it's nice there, right? When it isn't absolutely freezing. But isn't it the sun's up, right? That's the entire time.
Yep.
Well, at 23 hours at one point in time in Alaska, the sun's it makes a huge circle, and then it dips down for an hour, and then comes back up again.
Wow! So you only get an hour of darkness.
Yeah,
it's not even really darkness.
It's not darkness. Yeah, it's twilight.
It's twilight. Exactly. It's the light. It's not darkness.
Oh, so the sun's kind of just beyond the horizon.
Yeah, it just dips down a bit.
There is no horizon. We live on a flat Earth. I wanted to talk about that today here on Hash Church, just so everyone could lose all respect for me as a human being.
Flat Earth.
Oh, that kills me, dude.
Oh shit!
Wait a second. Kansas is flat.
Yeah. You think Kansas is flat? Try Texas.
Try Nebraska. At least the central part of Texas is at least hill country.
Try the Netherlands.
That's below sea level.
Uh-oh. What do you got there, Tony? Is that some bubble hash?
No, this isn't bubble hash. This is bubble hash that has been converted into a suspension. That we were talking about this. Kind of saw a little video.
So this is the converted version. It looks like
crazy looking
rocky bubble hash.
Right?
Fuck yeah, dude. Looks like it's like melted into a liquid and then sort of crystallized or something. Is it really hard like glass? Okay.
So we can take this little thing. You want to film that? We got some friends in the lab today This is kind of a Sunday session where it was friends from who's on the camera? We got Hope Lord on the camera, and then we got Alien Labs. We got Gold Drop in the lab.
What if you turn that camera sideways? Would it give us full screen? It might not. It's
Just wanted to show you when I actually agitate it or just mix it in. This is cold water. This is 6.0 water. I think this was like some weird pH thing, but there's no chemicals in this entire process. And what's nice about it is that it captures everything.
All the things in the hash, they're all chemicals. Those are all chemicals.
Well,
all right.
Chemicals.
How do you make the pH change in the water, Tony?
I didn't. It's just 6.0 pH.
Where'd you get the 6.0 pH water at? Because that's gonna be acidic water, no matter which way you look at it.
6.0. 6.0 water is acidic to you?
Well, 7 is neutral.
Acidic, yeah. Neutral is 7. 6 is
probably like. I did it at initial drinking, so it's probably about that.
Fiji water is 6.0.
Let's see here.
Yeah, that's because there's minerals in the water that
Hold on.
Oh, now someone's saying Fiji is 7.6.
Yeah, Fiji's a little higher. Can you, Joe? Can you go over to where there's a little pH pen? I think the water was like 6.0 to 7.0, the initial drinking water. There's not special water. Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, 7.0 would be, neutral. But 6.0, I asked because you said it was 6.0, and that is slightly acidic.
Okay.
And it's acidic enough to break down cannabinoids.
Yeah, usually you need to be at 11 for that. But go to, there should be like a little blue pen. Look in the left of the sink. See that little pH meter?
How much did you put in there, Tony? Was that like a half a gram or something?
Yeah, there was a half a gram in there.
Damn.
And what was the concentrate?
Oh, this is like 10 milligrams, or maybe a little more.
It was bubble hash, I think he said.
Of what was the varietal?
Of what went in here?
The chemovar.
Yes.
Yeah, this is sour D. Did you ask me what it was?
Yes, he did. And you answered, and now we were all on the same page.
All right, let's see what
Stir
we
it
got
up. I feel like we should be listening to Stir It Up while you're stirring that.
Let's see here. Hold on. So now we need a cup because this thing won't go all the way in.
Use the lid.
The lid?
Dang technology.
Oh, you're talking about the blue lid, right? There's no special pH, that's for sure. It's like 8.3. So Fiji and Evian, when I did this, was around 8. So really good alkaline water that you're drinking, artisanal, should be high. So
that's base, not acidic.
That's base, yeah.
Alkaline?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is typical because most carbonates, like hardness and water, are basic. But if you have a preponderance of carbonic acid, that's actually acidic. So it depends on where you are in the hardness scale. Is this tap water or RO water?
That's why when he said...
Yeah, it's RO water that went through UV sterilization that then went through the little ionic exchanger. So it's probably overkill, but it's just clean water. It's not like
okay, but that's why when you said the pH was 6, that's why I asked how you got to pH 6. So it's not pH 6 actually.
No, it's not pH 6.
Wait a second, he's using one of those funny ionic exchangers. So why are you doing that?
Does it separate?
It's just my drinking water in the lab. I just like a high alkaline water.
Yeah, okay.
We all like to have high alkaline water. We fill up our bottles here instead of spending
Right.
tremendous money on Evian every day. We just get lab water that's nice and clean to drink because I'm drinking it. I don't know. I like to drink it. I'm putting some in coffee too.
Yeah, but why are you doing that, Tony?
No. I'm asking just scientifically. I'm not trying to give him any shit.
No, I know, but I could tell he was kind of a little bit like...
He was irked that I asked the question. I'm sorry.
You scared him, dude. Don't be scaring Tony. He's here to...
Yeah, I don't want to scare Tony. Mark, I'll text...
Scared him away.
I'll text my questions to you. See? Yeah. Oh my God. God, I can't even ask him a question without him getting all heated up, huh?
He just texted me. He said he's never coming back into church again.
Oh man.
Fuck Scaldone.
Really?
No. No, he got disconnected. He's not even mad.
You are so gullible.
I'm about to say, stop taking your gullibility pills, doctor.
Listen, when I first met my wife, when she was very, very young, 15 years old, I told her gullibility. The word gullible was not in the dictionary. And she was like, really?
What else did you do when she was 15 years old, Mark?
That's dirty, Indra. That's dirty.
Just wondering. I know in Canada, young marriages are the
I was
norm.
16 years old, so there was nothing creepy going on, if that's what you're wondering.
Look, I know what 16-year-old boys do with 15-year-old girls. You ain't going to BS me.
I was being good. Hey, I'm still with her, so nothing but top respect and love, obviously.
Clearly.
Okay, so let's just recall what we just saw, right? Tony took some bubble hash and was able to dissolve it in water.
But it wasn't just bubble hash.
Yeah, it was bubble hash that's been treated in a special, cool kind of way. So he's able to treat bubble hash in a special, cool kind of way to make it dissolve in water.
It's kissed by unicorns.
Oil and rosin and sift as well, I believe.
Oil, rosin, and sift. And
Like
he's
any
able
type of
to dissolve it. And essentially, we're arguing over nothing because it's all around neutral. I mean, whether it's about 8 or whether it's about 6, essentially it's neutral. It's only off by a log of a pH unit. So it's really, or a log of equilibrium unit. But the question is what? So he's saying he's doing this without chemicals, which again, to a chemist like me, insults my intelligence.
Well, because what he really means is what his definition of, because you're right, and I've had this conversation with him just the other day. I said, well, listen, you know, all these terpenes are hydrocarbons themselves. They are
right. Don't say this on church. Sheldon's going to get heated up, man.
Yeah, well, it's true, and as you should be. But what he's not meaning that. What he really means, and he's going to start changing his lingo in the near future, I can assure you, is that it's not made with petrochemical solvents like gases or chemical solvents that like propane and butane and hexane.
Propane is organic, Mark.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, hydrogen cyanide is organic because it contains a carbon atom. So,
right. So then there's no way to say what Tony wants to say. There's
no.
I take it apart. So why don't we just understand that what he's talking about is he's using there has been no it's impossible to say. I can't even say it because it's not correct.
Added chemicals. Right?
All I said was,
Indra, I don't need to hear it. You've said enough. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I wasn't trying to pick him apart.
I just don't want to hear the yelling and the aggression. It's too much. It's a Sunday morning. We need to relax, have bong rips, disagree, no problem. We know what Tony was trying to say.
Yeah.
We know.
Well, it was a simple question. How did you get to pH 6? So that
right, and you already got answered that, which you kept going on 3 more times and continued to ask him, well, now I know why you couldn't, how you got the pH 6, because you didn't have, and he explained to you that it wasn't pH 6. So we're well past that.
Right, and it's essentially not even part of the real, discussion, which is that he came up with some way of formulating cannabis oil or cannabis extract into something that can be water soluble. That's cool, regardless of the fucking pH that it goes in.
Well, it could be depending on how it feels and what the effects are and how efficient it is. It could be something that's cool. Exactly.
And I will bet you $1 to a donut that somewhere there's a chemical involved somewhere.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was. We know there will be when cannabis is being used because it's full of chemicals.
Yeah.
How can you make a cannabis extract without chemicals being present?
You can't.
It's impossible.
Yeah, unless you make it in space.
Right. Yeah. But then there's this sort of top layer where people are thinking like, okay, there's the solvent extracts and there's the non-solvent extracts. Even though they're misnomers, it's kind of like the sativa and indica misnomer, where really like how, I guess, like you said, you say no added chemicals. But it could be
Well,
confusing.
a solvent really implies solute. So I think when you're dissolving things, the real traditional chemist would say solvent, solute if you're dissolving things. If you're using water to like knock trichome heads off of a plant, it's actually being used as what a chemist would call a coagulant, because the liquid phase is just coagulating everything else. So,
but simultaneously, it's also extracting. It's also dissolving.
right. So there is a soluble component there. Yeah. So I mean, everything is kind of balancing off each other, and
right.
You
It's hard
finally
to
divide
get
this
science to be accurate with anything that you say. Because in that sense, that a lot of the things that we say are misnomers at best. Like solventless.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it?
It seems to be. I mean, the only solventless I really know about is like maybe mechanical screen separation, but even then, it's like the resin itself is full of solvents.
Exactly where it came from is people wanted to distance themselves from BHO, because there was a lot of people doing the canned stuff and leaving a lot of residue behind in it. So, as a way of distancing themselves from it, when they made another kind of an extraction, they called it solventless.
Well, it was really Nick T who popularized solventless, and he was using it in Colorado because at the time people thought dabs was only BHO, and so his job was to help educate people that no, dabs could also be these other products. And what he was using was water hash, making water hash. And instead of naming it after Mila's isolator, or naming it after my bubble hash, or naming it after Matt Rise's ice wax, he came up with his own, which was solventless. And so that's kind of trying to, educate people that there was also, because I'll tell you, when I first started dabbing, people thought dabs was only BHO. And when I showed up with dry sift and wet wash dabs, they were kind of like, what is this? And I'm like, it's dabs. And they're like, oh, not like any dabs I've ever seen. And I'm like, well, now you can widen the term dabs to include these products.
We hated alien workshops in second grade.
Welcome back, Tony.
Matt Rise's stuff, amazing. I had a chance to have it twice, that ice stuff. And another guy, Adam, who I don't know if he's in the chat or not, makes that similar material. It's like glass. You have to pry it out of the bottle, and it's like sticky glass.
It's really the quality of the material more than anything, because the process is water hash, it's water and ice, it's gravity, it's screens, and there's nothing that he's doing that's going to make it better, because all you can do is make the unveiling as clean as possible. And the quality, that what you're seeing, that like glass resin, that props goes to the grower and the genetics and the environment that he produced it in, or she. Ooh, someone's smelling some water. Yummy, yummy. Oh, drinking it, going in for the drink. Forget about it. These guys are getting lit.
What's that feel like?
It's just good water.
Yeah, it's not even like a strong flavor. It's just like that essence, little aroma. I like that. It's more the smell than even the taste.
Is it flavorless?
No, it tastes exactly like so this is from Bubble Hash. This is
it tastes like it lines your mouth, but like the nose.
Okay. I have a question.
It's like it's refreshing.
So what's interesting about this is THCA, because we haven't decarbed this, and they had a huge fight earlier about decarbing. But I can tell you that when I drink one of these, within 10, 15 minutes, I start to feel.
I felt the water.
You felt it before on the last one you just had. It's pretty fast.
So Tony,
That tastes a lot like Josie too.
Right. Yeah, it's the Dosey dough.
Yeah, that's great.
Tony, have you evaporated that water to see if you can recollect the hash?
That's interesting.
Tony, are you there? Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah. Can you hear
I was
me?
about to say, can you? Yeah. What would happen if you dry it out now, or see what is actually in the leftover?
Well, it should be what I put in it.
Yeah, it should be, exactly.
It should be like what we started with.
No, as if
great
you,
video.
if you were
Time-lapse that
to
video.
dry it, what would its activation be?
What happened?
I don't know, but what it says is a little different than a solubility thing, because it's The water soluble does. Let me turn this around again. Hold on. So it's like a suspension. You know, it's not like water soluble. It's like water, but the difference is like some people have those, like the CBD clear drops that have a weird pH and a weird funky taste. This was just like the organic version of trying to create something that naturally came from bubble hash and could capture the terpenes naturally, you know?
So basically what you're saying, Tony, is it's not a solution, it's a suspension.
Correct. That's the best way to look at it.
Very nice. Very cool.
So a suspension implies that it's a solid. I think that this is more of what I would refer to as a dispersion, which are fine micro sort of phases that are dispersed, and inside the phase is basically where the water insoluble cannabinoid is. So it's a dispersion.
What did the scientists that developed that concept call it, Tony?
Would that be called a hydrosol, Mark?
No.
Nothing like hydrosol, huh?
It's a dispersion. It's exactly what it is.
A dispersion. Well, Tony's finishing it off. That's
It's good. It's good.
I thought a dispersion was when you criticized and made fun of somebody.
And they hung up.
Nice. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, Woody Cooper. Now that will smuggle hash and water across borders.
Now you're getting it. Now you're getting it.
He said it, not me. So I need 500 gallons of some Jack Frost bubble hash, 73, 90 micron, please.
Well, this serves a couple purposes. I was trying to develop something for something that's going to come out that's more of a dietary supplement drink. That's on the Prana line, but and I wanted it to be natural. So this is, and then there's also something I wanted to do with, as we gear up for the Bubble Man launch here again in the new lab, which was creating packets that we could throw into water that can be medicated and flavored, and not so much focusing on the water, but more of an ingredient that you could add to any beverage, like I just did with the coffee.
Hey, Tony, you could add a little lecithin to it, and that would help any of the oil-based stuff go into solution much better. And it's a tea blend, and it's organic, and
Let those guys know to keep their voices down in the background. It's the mic's picking them all up. I always like to warn people, not like bitch to them, but like especially private groups of guys having conversations next to the rosin press. Sometimes they don't realize they're being recorded for 10,000 people to hear later at a later date.
Yeah, so some people are pointing this out in the chat, the difference between a dispersion and emulsion. So I could try to explain this on the chemistry side of things. So an emulsion is something like when you shake up oil and vinegar, and for the second that it creates sort of a continuous sort of creamy one-layer material, the oil droplets are all dispersed throughout the continuous water phase, right? And eventually that settles out into an oil and a vinegar layer. So that is a emulsion that's not stable. A dispersion is basically just an emulsion that's stabilized because, like milk is a perfect example, or butter. Butter is probably a better example because butter is a oil in water immersion. But the thing is like in Tony's product there, you have a very hydrophobic molecule in the cannabinoids, and the cannabinoids don't like to be in water. And anyone who's ever cleaned out a bong knows that, or you clean out your rig, cannabinoids don't solubilize in water. But dispersant molecules, or what are called surfactants, or like Indra had mentioned lecithin. There's a lot of different molecules that are used to essentially make creamy Italian, which is where you have a single phase where you have both the water and the oil phase emulsified into a single phase. And that's what the dispersant does. Dispersant basically just makes a stable dispersion.
With milk, it's homogenized.
Yeah, well, with milk, the point is that there's fat in milk, and the fat, in cream will actually, separate out, but there's glycolipids and glycoproteins in milk that basically keep the fat particles or keep the fat phases from finding each other, because if they start to find each other, they're going to agglomerate and they're going to make a separate phase. And
that's called butter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the point is that the dispersants that are in there are keeping those cannabinoids from finding each other. Now, the interesting thing to ask Tony is, what's the stability of that? Like, if you were to take that and put that on a centrifuge, and now you put a centripetal force on those fluid layers, is that enough to actually drive a separation where you'd see the cannabinoids in one layer and the water layer elsewhere? So you could do that with milk, say on a centrifuge, and actually separate out the fat layer. But I guess go ahead, Mark.
Well, all this talk of milk and butter and ice cream, I just want to call it what it is: baby calf growth hormone.
Thank you. Okay.
Which, if you want to grow massive man boobs, you should drink a lot of it, and otherwise, leave it to the cows.
I'm just trying to speak an analogy so the lay audience could understand what I'm thinking about, because they could relate it to a everyday common item that they see a lot. That's the only reason for making milk. But I love milk. It comes in the cutest containers. At least mother's milk does.
Oh yeah, mother's milk. I'm down with. I'm just not down with the
bovine thing. I get it. Well, ink is another perfect example. Ink is also a dispersion. It's a dispersion of finely ground pigment particles. So the ink that's in all of our printers is basically a dispersion of a fine particle, and they have to stay fine or else they'll clog your inkjet. So they put dispersants and surfactants in there to basically keep those particles from finding each other, so they don't agglomerate and make a bigger particle and crash out. So the question around Tony's formulation there is, how stable would it be if you were to set that out for a week at a time? Would it still look the same? Is it stable over a freeze thaw cycle? Like, if you were to freeze the water and then thaw it out again, would it still look the same? So, I mean, these are all kinds of questions that any formulator would look at and look to see how stable it is.
That's the kind of stuff you end up putting in a opaque bottle or carton so that it doesn't display any of those tendencies.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen cannabis products that say shake well, and that doesn't bode well for a soda, right? Cannabis soda that you have to shake well, then stand back because it's just going to spray all over the place.
Well, I made a cannabis seed extract for one of the guys in the chat named Connor, and he brought over the Manitoba cannabis seed oil as a comparison, which as soon as I saw it come out on the plate and looked at it, I renamed it green slime. But he compared that next to the absolutely golden oil that I made for him, and wow, what a difference. That Manitoba Harvest guys, how do they sell that green slime stuff, Mark? I mean, if you leave it out of the refrigerator for a few hours, it starts going south.
Yeah, they sell a lot of it.
Yeah, I know. He brought it with him just for an example. And he also brought along a bag of crushed seeds.
Nice.
Which was
I wonder if it could be fortified with vitamin E or some other naturally occurring antioxidants to help keep it from going south.
You mean the green slime?
Well, before it turns into green slime.
Well, it just looks like green slime when you put it out of the bottle. I mean, it's rare to see something that dark green. because I remember Mark was telling me about they have an extensive water treatment process where they bounce it off of a screen along with water in some kind of $1 million machine to absorb some of the chlorophyll out of it.
Oh, that's not for oil. That's for protein powder isolate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you press, if you press your oil out of shelled seed, then it'll come out a lot nicer color. But yeah, if you press it with the seed, of course you're getting color from the seed, amongst other things.
Yeah, mostly tannins, right?
From the seed, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody just said skim milk looks green before they add chemicals to make it white again. I didn't know that. But anyway, you can't add chemicals to the Manitoba Harvest green stuff to make it lighter. It was green, and that's the end of that story.
Speaking of green, holy shit.
Yeah.
My beer. Looks like some.
We've got we're just preparing here. There's some cookies and cream greenhouse fresh frozen. So this was taken off the plant whole bud in 15 minutes and froze from greenhouse. So we're gonna see what some greenhouse fresh frozen does.
Turn your phone side.
You've cut. This is fresh frozen from cutting it down, Tony.
Boom.
From greenhouse, yeah.
Here, I want to see what a bag looks
Yeah,
like.
let's open one up. So this is going to be the Bubble Man Gold Drop collab.
This is actually from the indoor garden.
Oh, this is indoor, even better.
Yeah, we got to mix here.
I was like, yeah, don't fuck with it too much. Let's see what it looks like. Looks like you still got it on the stick there. You took me literally.
Yeah. They grab them quick, freeze them fast.
Yeah, open that up over here. Hold on, take that. Yeah, and then drop that over here.
So what are you going to do with it? Are you going to use what extraction
What are
method?
we gonna? Don't touch. Yeah, let me see here. Oh my God! Look how fucking beautiful that is. Nice. All right, dude.
Looks colorful.
That's what we're talking about. Super purple, super frosty.
What are you going to make out of it?
What do you think I'm going to make out of it?
I think you're going to make some bubble hash, maybe a little dry sift, some terpenes, maybe some will go into prana.
We're gonna make a shitload of full melt and
rosin
and basically some of those new non-solvent carts we were talking about. Nice. So yeah, he's got indoor and greenhouse, and this is like a lot of people don't know Gold Drop actually grows their own too. But for the last year or whatever, we've been doing like the Blue River Gold Drop carts and distillates and everything, and now we're going to be doing a Bubble Man Gold Drop collab. So we're going to be doing a whole bunch of non-solvent stuff from his grow.
Beautiful.
Looks really good. Looks pretty good. Let's see that greenhouse stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. That'll work really well. Yeah, you know, it's only been 4 years in the making. Finally going to make some full melt. Let's see here.
Oh, yeah.
These are nice sized freezers.
Yeah, they go -30.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, it was so cold that it actually started pulling water out of the plant.
Right.
-30. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is like super cold. You see that separation?
Oh, yeah.
All that ice right there? That's how cold your freezer is. Okay.
Nice to have the cold freezer.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, do you ever sample that ice for terpene content?
No, but that's a good idea. Let that melt out or something, you know? It's interesting. Yeah,
Probably
you'll be able to wash all that.
Probably be milky if it's terpenes.
Well, this is going to be good. I'm excited.
Yes.
You saw some images. You saw some images before that was. I did a little snips of some the walk-in process freezer, and some of the machine setup.
Yeah, it froze up at halfway through, but I did see you walk in and saw the machine sitting there. It's hard to get good
Yeah, I'm
Wi-Fi
excited.
inside the walk-in.
Yeah, that's an issue. I'm gonna have to run a special line in there, which I will do tomorrow, because we're making a digital Bubble Man cockpit. We'll just be your robots, bro.
I
Hey,
can't
Tony,
wait.
what's the temperature of your freezer there?
What's the temp of your freezer here?
-40.
No way. These are
-30. Sorry.
It's -30.
Thank you.
That's cold. Just in case.
Yeah, let's see here. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, the thing with the water, when you're asking about the water, why I have all that different water situation is because the ice and the water, so this is at -20. The ice in the water is controlled, and then all of the water is kept in the also in the walk-in frostless. So it's not a walk-in freezer. It's a special design room that actually doesn't create frost. See how you have all the frost on the side of here? The walk-in that I have that I kind of glimpsed in has no frost, so it's good for you keep your water in there, you wash in there, you dry in there.
Is that been trimmed in any way, or is that just whole plant?
No, whole plant cut down, fresh
Sugar leaf and
frozen.
everything. I mean, every fan leaf and everything.
Yep.
Really? Wow.
It's got sugar leaf. Yeah, well, not the big fan leaves. They took some of the big fan leaves down, but anything that I said had trichomes on it, I want it.
So there's going to be a lot of water content in that, as opposed to something that was trimmed and frozen.
Some of them are.
Yeah, I don't like anything trimmed. Just because it's like anytime hands touch,
Right.
yeah, no. Anytime hands touch the plant or the resin, it's just kind of like imagine we were trying to collect grapes, in their perfect form, and I don't want to like have fingers all over them and pop them and all that stuff. So
No, I hear you. I think that's a smart move. Anything that's got trichomes, you want to put through your processing, but you're balancing that with bringing a lot of water content through this freezing process, right?
Yep. So everything's going to keep this. So this material stays cold. Then it goes in directly into the. It'll go into the room and the washers, and all the water. Everything's been balanced and UV'd and sterilized, and the ice as well. So the melt time, just to give you an idea, it was kind of interesting. We ran some ice through it, and then we literally emptied it, put it in the sink, and ran hot water over it, and it like took hours for it to melt down. So the melt time on the cubes that we're using and the type of water is extremely hard, which for those that want to agitate, I think it's going to help us on our runs. I think we'll be able to get the resin off the plant faster. And I got some other little tricks for not using like paper towels or anything for basically putting the patties in a form that's on a drying screen that's suspended on a rack that will allow the water to kind of drip down while inside the walk-in. So it'll get like a lot of the water out very quickly.
The real trick at that point, Tony, will be making sure the amount of water you get out is the perfect amount, the sweet spot that allows you to sieve really nicely. And if it's so cold, you'll be able to get a lot of water out. And if it's not so cold, you have to leave a lot more of that water in there.
Oh yeah, so that's the idea of the walk-in. So that's really the key, is you want to get the water out as fast as possible. And like exactly what you just said.
Yeah, sideways will give us the full screen.
Yeah, so it's a good start.
Yeah,
it's a good start,
forward
brother.
to washing.
Yeah, you'll be washing digitally.
I know, it's going to be the digital washing. I can't wait. I'm going to be in the walk-in on an iPad.
Yeah, the 2 times I tried to do it, I'm like, hup, hup, hup. And then you just like completely freeze up as soon as the door closes every time. So I'm going to have to run a special wire cat fire direct into there.
Into the walk-in, the frostless walk-in with the cat fire. That's awesome. 800 people watching. Got a schwack load in the chat. They've been talking all morning long. I guess we've been at it almost 3 hours, 2 hours and 35 minutes. Probably call it a day today at noon. So we got 25 more minutes to cover whatever we need to cover. And then I'm going to head down to the University of British Columbia, UBC, on my motorcycle and go see if I can't catch Martin Lee speak about CBD. Can cannabis terpenes be used as a solvent to make hash oil? Well, we know that Horatio was doing it with D-limonene with cannabis. I'm not sure how much actual hash oil he ever made. I'm not sure if he took hash and did the limonene extraction.
Extraction with it, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if he ever did that. I think he was always using buds.
If you had enough of it, of course.
Yeah, well, no, I know you could. I just don't know if he ever did.
No. I understand that.
Because they called it hash oil. So I'm always like, to me, hash oil is something that you made oil with using hash as a starting material. That's what I call hash oil. No one wants to disagree with me?
Well, no, I was going to ask Sam if back in the day when honey oil was around, honey oil, wasn't it just another synonym for, hash oil, or wasn't it called hash oil?
I think they were using...
It was thicker and cleaner. And I think one of the primary reasons was because they were making it out of hashish rather than cannabis. It had a much lighter golden color.
Interesting.
It was also thick as hell.
Well, also when people learned how to filter through the carbon filters, they could start removing unnecessary colors that were stuck in their oil, and you could take pretty shitty.
That also helps, but you also lose active ingredients. But yes, you can do that, and but I think the secret was they might have used activated charcoal or just really good hashish. When I first went to hashish, you could buy a kilo for $5. That was just cheap hash, but $5 for a kilo.
That was just extremely cheap hash, I think we would call that. Damn.
Hash oil when I was a kid was dark as hell, right?
Yeah.
It was like black oil.
Yeah.
Almost had like a opium kind of flavor to it. And yeah, when we used to hot knife it, it tasted like old school hash.
But it was sticky as hell and got everywhere.
Sticky as hell. Yeah.
Yeah. When I first met Rob Clark, he came to my house. It must have been like 90. I mean, I met him in 95, but briefly. I met him when Hillary brought him to my house, and it must have been like maybe 96 or 97. I'd have to look back and try and figure that out. Actually, there's a timeline from the same time at the same house, me, Hillary, and Donnie Wershafter. That's from the same year that Rob came to my house. And for whatever reason, I'm holding a weird Indian hookah pipe in my hand. So weird that I just had that there. But yeah, Rob came. All I had to smoke at the time was Nepali hash oil. And it was, he was like, well, geez, even though I know how they make this, I guess I'll smoke it. And it was, thank God, it wasn't just how they make it, but it was, friends that were making it that were at least trying to make it better than worse.
A lot of kerosene in the Nepali hashes and the various hashes. They used kerosene a lot as a solvent.
Yeah.
Did they fully boil it off? I mean, it's okay if they're using it as a solvent. If it's completely removed, is it completely removed?
If it's not, your eyebrows are completely removed. So you figure it out really quick in the bioassay of the flash burning of the skin off your face.
Well, I'm talking about if there's ppm residuals in there. I mean, God knows if they're making it in some,
Listen, let's just say that.
They make it in a tub in a village, Mark. Of course. Don't you remember burning hash on the end of a pin and seeing black smoke come from it?
Yeah. That was
the fucking kerosene separation happening in real time through combustion.
Kerosene. Well, thank God I like to think that our friend had a little bit more knowledge than the local people that were busting it out with kerosene. But who's
Also, too, it's little known that hashishine actually comes as a breakdown product from kerosene.
Right, hashishine and kerosene, key. You know, Sam, for people that are taking notes and don't understand your humor, you have confused them great, and I applaud you for that, because why not? Life is insane.
I'll try to unconfuse them. Hashishine comes from the thermal and light-mediated degradation of myrcene, not from kerosene.
Well, I knew it was one of those scenes.
It's some bad scene.
It's like an
One of those-
scene.
One of those chemical scenes, right?
No, there's no chemicals in this scene.
That's right. Sorry.
At least we can laugh at ourselves. Man. That's the thing, you know?
I just remember choking on kerosene in the olden days. You could taste it in the hash when it came through. When they didn't, I don't think what they did was made it, and the way that it matriculated out was if they didn't sell the hash this year, they sold it next year, and probably by then it mostly dried out.
Well, you could definitely taste it in cocaine, right? Because I guess when they do the masha in the cocaine recovery process in the plant, they often do that in hydrocarbon, like, you know, kerosene and whatnot. I always used to think it used to smell like toluene, but it definitely had a very, you know, gasoline-y kind of essence to it.
I don't know, but if you throw a bunch of cocoa leaves in the extractor and extract them, you'd be surprised as what you get out the bottom.
Well, probably not, considering it's an extractor and we all understand what cocaine is from cocaine leaves. I would suspect it would be like a cocaine-like product, some type of crystalline fucking extract that you would get.
No, it's not crystalline, right? Because it's free base, right?
Just powder?
It's free base.
Crystalline is the hydrochloride salt.
It doesn't take much to urge it over into crystalline form, though.
Hydrochloric acid is what it takes.
Yeah. A light spray.
We do it with just water.
Oh, we do it just water.
That's our new thing.
Yeah.
You're talking about alkaline water, though, right? Or
No, pH corrected water.
I'm talking about no chemicals added.
Yeah, I don't like to think of water as a chemical, but I definitely understand in the definition of chemistry, it's a chemical. But
it's the universal solvent.
Yeah, it's the universal solvent. But what I mean by no chemicals added, meaning no other solvents besides water or chemicals used.
Right, nothing out of a big 4-liter jug that you have to take the wrapping off of, and
no chemicals added, like
no chemicals.
Well, and then I'm also in in California, it's a type 6, which means it's a non-volatile lab, which means you can't have any volatiles in it. And even in Colorado, they like come down on people that are using 99% ISO in the lab. So fire departments, and if you're non-volatile, now they have type 7, which is volatile, but I'm not in that. That's not like the license category of which I would be in.
right. They just came out with the rules, and they definitely are okay with butane extraction.
100%. And that's where I'm at. Where Goldrop is at, he's a type 7, and I'm a type 6.
But ISO is an issue? Did I hear this right?
Yeah, they were coming down on people in Colorado for just having ISO in a water hash lab.
At what volume, Tony? Do you know? Like, is there a particular volume?
You know, that's a good question. I just had heard it through somebody.
Because I could go to the fucking drugstore and go buy a couple bottles of 90% isopropyl alcohol.
Over everything in the room.
You know, how can they regulate isopropyl alcohol at a lab? That's weird.
Look, in Northern California, every store you go into during harvest time has pallets of 99% isopropyl alcohol, thousands of packs of scissors and gloves everywhere in the store. I mean,
yeah, that's probably for cleaning, though, John. Like more for cleaning. I mean, I think what we're talking about here is extracting. Well, but you're bringing up a good point, which is that isopropyl alcohol is a ubiquitous laboratory supply. It just weird that they would try to regulate that in Colorado.
That's what I heard. I don't know the validity, but it was somebody that was still washing in Colorado, and he said that he's like, yeah, we had I don't know, it was the fire department or somebody was giving him shit, but they're always looking for something in.
Well, he probably had like big fucking drums.
He probably had gallon or drums.
Right, so it's probably a volume restriction because again, you could buy isopropyl alcohol at a drugstore. I mean, you could just totally load up on it. So I don't know how they can keep that out of a lab. And like John was saying, I think the real big use for it is for cleaning your hands, cleaning scissors, cleaning shit that gets all sticky from touching. Yeah.
Well, there's a bunch of people who, like at a big grow, they started noticing that at the end of the day, after you've cleaned 50 pairs of scissors, that there's something in the bottom of the alcohol jar that looks yellow and golden. And when they dried it out, wow.
Well, I would just take a little bit of alcohol on the end of a towel or a wipe and then just wipe off my hands and throw it in the trash. I mean, I'm just saying that when you're handling shit all the time in the lab, you need some way of, defunctifying or, when you have that sticky shit everywhere. Isopropyl alcohol is a safe, common solvent that's used to destickify all your shit, right?
Yeah, but as somebody just pointed out in the chat, if you use isopropyl alcohol to clean your stuff and your equipment, you're no longer solventless.
Oh, damn it. Fuck.
Hey, I'd like to interrupt for a moment to congratulate the French for electing Macron by a landslide of 65%. He's also pro-cannabis, so hopefully we'll see some change in France. Le Pen got her ass handed to her. So.
He was pro-cannabis before the election.
Let's see what he is now.
He's just released the statement. I'll read it now. I'm going to be going after all cannabis users harder than France ever has in the history of France. I'm just joking, but fucked if it doesn't happen like that too often.
Sacre bleu.
Well, listen to our president. I don't know if you guys talked about that, but Congress said, okay, you're going to get zero money to go after the war on drugs as far as states that have passed cannabis laws, especially medical.
Todd mentioned that. Yep.
Oh yeah, and then he comes out. He ran on states' rights, hands off, all this shit. Then he says, "Well, we're going to figure out how to raise the money anyway because we still want to go after it." It's like, listen to the people. The people have voted. The people have spoken in each state. It's like that is your job. You don't get to just like imagine if Trump was like the judge of a cannabis competition and he didn't like the top 10. He'd just be like, well, I'm just going to change it around. It's like.
He'd be saying, fake buds. Fake great. Damn
it. Fake terms, fake buds.
Yeah.
Yep. No, exactly. Flippity floppity, as Guild Extract says in the chat. They flip, they flop. It's like a fish out of water. They just can't help themselves. But hopefully
I think, though, in all honesty, greed is going to do them all in because the numbers coming out of all these legal states make them all droll. And that's the reality. I mean, if they tax us, they'll make way more money off us than they ever did policing us, locking us up, and fucking jacking us for our stuff.
They just don't know how consistent our puffing is.
No, our consistent puffing has made it to the point where we outnumber. I mean, coal jobs, we outnumber 2-1 in the cannabis industry now. So the great American coal industry that used to be so touted for its numbers is now pales in comparison to what the cannabis producers are starting to do. And this is just with with other regulations coming on board. It's just in other states coming on board. It's going to be one of the largest growing, and it already is one of the largest growing industries in the United States and in North America. So that trend is not going to stop now.
Well, the thing to pay attention to is the approval rate is 72, which means we've only got 28% more to go, and we'll be over the fucking hump. It'll be 100%. Let's go for it. So somehow we've got to get to that last 28% because buried deep within that group are a bunch of regulators and assholes who who don't smoke. They smoke Cools, Salems, and cigars. They drink whiskey. So they don't want to hear about it, and they probably have money in the whiskey and pharmaceutical index, and so they don't want to hear about it doubly. The pharmaceutical people put a lot of money towards short stringing us on all of this, and they really downplay the stories where people got off of this or got off of that by using cannabis. The pharmaceutical industry is actually starting to put out ads trying to reverse that trend, and they're giving money to people who make ads to come up with that kind of stuff. They're trying to get back to the point in time where they showed a frying pan, popped an egg in it, and said, "This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs." Sure. Any questions?
Can I add to that too? Pushing back this really restrictive healthcare in America, where pre-existing conditions will find it hard to get, treatment, is going to push more people towards what a lot of us have experienced, which is our own path of holistic healing and turning to cannabis as, what was once an alternative, now is becoming more and more an actual solution to many actual medical conditions, the more we experiment with it and the more we learn about it. So in one way, they taking healthcare away from some of the ones that are suffering the most, which are pre-existing conditions and low-income patients, they are actually creating a group of medical marijuana patients that are going to be demanding their rights even stronger and louder than ever before.
Let's hope. France has definitely been one of those countries that have been pushed down in regards to the sort of fascist way they've looked at cannabis. It's I couldn't believe the first time I went there in the 80s, and it was like you could not have even then a little cannabis pin.
So goes France, so goes Europe. That's the reality. So if you start to see that, you'll see a ripple without a doubt. No, so hopefully, he's the youngest prime minister of France.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But for those of us that have been visiting Europe for the past 25 years, it has changed immensely in other countries. It used to just be Amsterdam, but now, Spain and Italy and, even France. I've driven through France multiple times. It's changed quite a bit.
Germany has medical cannabis.
Yeah, Germany is a great example. Absolutely true, Although I remember when somebody got chased out of the hemp biofuck for displaying hemp plants at the hemp symposium. So they were freaking out back in 1995, trying to figure out what they were going to allow and what they were, who's afraid of a flower was really the funniest conversation of that whole, I'd say, expo.
Well, that's the potency of propaganda. And it can be done to an idea or to something as simple as a flower.
Well, it's funny when it's just a little living plant, a 2-foot high hemp plant that's not harming anybody. It's just a little hemp plant, and they were freaking out over it, and it was honestly very amusing. And I don't know, it's like that's when the perspective, I think that's when the pink elephant's really in the room, because when the cute little plants in front of you and suddenly realize all of this hysteria has been over an actual flower, it seems like really asinine.
Well, I think one of the times Mark went to jail was for passing a joint. Just like a joint. He just passed a joint, bam, he was in jail in Saskatchewan. It was like, what? That's crazy. It's like, I thought selling seeds was ridiculous.
He should have bogarted it.
Yeah.
That's one of those times, where that song doesn't apply. You're right. Don't bogart that joint. Could have been changed to, maybe bogart the joint. Felony charges are a bitch. You won't be able to go down to the US, et cetera, et cetera. He could have probably made a song out of it. I don't know. Maybe Mark will rewrite that song for the prohibition state. If you live in Oklahoma, you best bogart that joint.
That's funny. We should see about getting and doing a grow show, seeing it spring, because this is going to be such a huge season for California, considering they're at 90% of their water capacity, And for the first time in, over 100 years, cannabis is legal again in this state.
Maybe we could invite a bunch of great panelists to join us and have a little bit of a flow, because at Grow Show, we'd really invite a lot of different people, let them all come in and share their 2 cents, or even if it's just one great tip for spring planting or whatever.
I think it's going to be a bountiful season. I cannot honestly wait to see what everybody does. I hope everybody takes advantage of their rights. And even if you're not growing commercially, grow some cannabis just for the fun of it. Just, for the sake of having a plant on your patio in the name of freedom, just plant a seed. Do it.
You can grow, remember, you can grow 6 per adult, and you can gift up to an ounce.
Right, grow it and give it away. There you go.
Plant your seeds, everybody. Plant your seeds. Well, listen, I do thank everyone for showing up today for Hash Church. I'm going to head off to the university here and check out a few speakers. Plus, I speak today. Holy shit, I almost forgot about that. I do a little extraction panel with a couple other people. I think Allison Drazen is actually moderating it. If I do, maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember. Either way, thanks everyone for coming out for Hash Church 137. All of those that have been watching, and of course, Etienne, Skunkman, Sam, Indra, Dr. Mark Scaldone, Todd McCormick, D420K, who came and left, Tony Verzura for sharing a little bit of the lab with us, and anyone else that I may have forgotten that was in earlier that left. I can't remember.
Todd, no hard feelings. I didn't mean anything bad by that. I just get lit up sometimes.
None taken. I'm fine. All good, John.
Part of the discourse.
Sweet of you to say. I hope you all have a great weekend too. I enjoyed doing the panel with you. Even if I don't always agree or if I'm laughing, I still have a great time intellectually.
I agree
with you.
I agree with you, Todd. I think it's real suspicious Indra has a vacuum oven.
How dare he?
You guys are fucking awesome.
Cheers and love,
Peace out,
guys.
everybody.
You should see my molecular still.
You say that to all the girls.
You should see my molecular stilts.
Peace out, Tony.